Well, if you haven't already and you still want to grab a Maxonomics Smite chair, you can by going over to needforseat.com and using code SMITEMAX to get yourself a nice little discount and pick up your very own chairs. That way you can stay focused at home. That way you can tighten up and get ready to be prepared for this next match. The Tartarus Titans taking on the Camelot Kings for our second set of the day. Sure to be a big one. The Camelot Kings, they had a loss earlier on in week number 1. Now they had a big win over the Solar Scarabs and are looking to bring themselves back here, Gormizer. That way they have a better chance of running for the top end of the standings.
Yeah, this is a really contested matchup. I think the Kings need this win in order to find themselves, first off, some ground. Things have not been going as easily for them, I think, as they would have expected, and honestly, as a lot of people would have expected over the last couple of weeks. A little bit of struggles versus the Scarabs earlier, and whereas the Titans have been just dominating overall and making things a lot more interesting, this is going to be a really close set.
Well, talking about their matchup with the Scarabs, that happened earlier on this week. You can go back and watch that if you want to catch up on all of that action. 2-1 was the Camelot's victory there. The Olympus Bolts had a good run against the Dragons, but not good enough to get them a win. Now we're moving all the way here to our final match of the day, right after our Bolts and Valkyrie set has just concluded with a 2-0 for the Bolts. We're now with the Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans. Probably, I'm not going to call it the biggest match of the week. I mean, we had 2 Dragons matches here in studios, and those were both really good, and you can see how everything reflected in the standings with the Leviathans coming out with a 3-0 so far to close out week number 2 for them. Tartarus Titans are looking to meet them at the top of the standings today.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. If the Kings win this set, then you've got 4 teams that are tied at 2-1 versus if the Titans win this set, 2 teams tied at 3-0 at the very top. So it makes things a little more contested, I think, if the Kings are able to win this, at least in terms of everybody, scrambling to get over each other. But of course, it's always more interesting when you have 2 teams that are lumbering over the top 2. We'll see if the Titans are going to be able to continue their win streak as well.
I don't know if I'd say it's more interesting to have 2 looming over everyone else. I kind of want to see the scrapping that happens amongst the mids. Maybe it's easier as far as dealing with the plus minus when it's just 2 clear-cut teams at the top and then they get to decide everything else. But who cares about that? Let's talk a little bit about this mid lane matchup between these 2 teams, because this is where my eyes are glued for everything else between Big Man Tings and Paul. Big Man Tings has, let's just put it out there, a pretty wide god pool. Him and Dardes don't always play the more conventional stuff. They do play it when they have the opportunity to do so, like Raijins and Tiamats, but this is a player who likes to bring out some of the stranger picks. The Giannis has been working out well for him up against the Leviathans. They were able to get some good matchups, and then their matchup against the Scares, Big Man Team, also finding some success in mid.
Yeah, they have been wildly successful with a lot of their picks in mid, and it's one of the things that's a little more interesting. We talk about it a little bit every now and then, but the fact that Tings has been dealing with ping for a lot of the year and is still playing gods like this, this Kukulkan that is able to connect. I almost called him Ao Kuang because he's using the old skin.
You're right.
But the Kukulkan and that Spirit of the Nine wins, despite the fact that he's having to deal with, latency and things like that, make it very interesting. Wildly successful on a lot of these picks as well. The Raijins, your Giannis's that we've seen a couple of these, you tend to see a lot of really, really hot plays from. But I think that where we are right now, specifically, we've noticed Tiamat getting through a lot more. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see one of these 2 players play that. Ideally not Paul, because he's been doing too well on it. But, being able to pick things up like that, I think this wide god pool that Tings brings just makes it so much easier for the rest of his team to, pick up genetics as priority picks, pick up things for Netroid, things like that to get them comfortable.
Look, I'll always call him Ao Kuang, even if it is Kukulkan, especially if you're using that old skin. It's all obviously Ao Kuang in my heart. We got Big Man Ting standing by for an interview for the Camelot Kings. Talk to him a little bit about maybe some of your thoughts on the new changes. How does it feel having Captain Twig back in the jungle on the more traditional assassins for you?
It feels alright. I mean, I think he said before that assassins aren't his strongest suit. I'd say he likes a bit more warrior focus sometimes, maybe some guardians sprinkled in the meta, but he's doing a good job adjusting right now with the assassins. So,
man, if assassins aren't his strongest suit, and that's the performance he had against the Scares, especially that game 1 Hoonbots, where we're like 8-0, it could have fooled me. While we have seen changes in the jungle, we also have maybe a little bit of a shakeup in the mid lane potential. How does it feel on this new patch for the mid laners?
I would love to sit here and say, oh, it feels great, but getting one shot by a bunch of assassins right now, not the best. But we're trying to make it work out here with what we've been given. So we'll just see how it goes.
Well, hopefully it can work out for you. You had a close match against the Scarabs earlier in the week. Any expectations coming up against the Tartarus Titans in your match today?
Just try and have a good set as well as possible. We had a pretty tough set against the Scarabs. We've had some pretty poor scrims recently, so just hopefully trying to turn that around as best we can and just see where it leads us, really.
Well, hopefully he can turn it around. Good luck in your match today, big man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Never fun being one-shot by assassins. That's just the bane of all mid laners when it comes to the assassins being back in the meta. But so far, they've been able to make it work out. Captain Twig has had some decent success in the games that he got to play it. But now they're going up against the Tartarus Titans in a complete kind of 180 here. Somebody where Captain Twig is maybe a little bit more proficient with these warriors that we've been seeing. They're going up against Layers and Paul. Layers very eclectic with these assassins, and Paul very top end with some of these top mage picks.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest deal. First off, Paul has been getting a lot of them for free lately. I mean, we've seen more Tiamat games, it feels like, in the last few weeks from Paul, including the Phase 2 playoffs, than anything else, but also had a really stellar performance last week on this Raijin, to the point where things were looking pretty solid for the Scarabs, and then Paul happened. Unfortunately for them, there's not much you can do about that sometimes, and it just seems to be the case as of right now. Also was the case at Worlds this last year, and that's where things get really interesting. I was looking at it, and we talk a lot about Paul playing the Tiamat lately. We have to look at these Raijin highlights because they were phenomenal last week. But you look at it, the top 10 gods that are banned against the Titans: Tiamat, Hel, you've got Raven, or not Raven, I skipped over Raijin, and then the Morrigan there. 4 of the top 10 gods banned against the Titans are specifically targeting out Paul and trying to control him. And you've got some other big ones that make a lot of sense. Right? Your Yamojas, Artemis is up there because of the prowess that we got to see out of her. But realistically, it just goes to show that Paul is someone that needs to be controlled, or a lot of people view as needing to be controlled, and yet still is able to get a lot of these other picks and make them look good. When Giannis was kind of the staple in meta, he was going over to that no problem. I'm not going to be surprised if we, see a lot of bans maybe towards the mid lane, but also, despite the fact that we see the Kings with a very wide god pool in the mid lane, we're probably going to see something similar out of Paul on the other side.
You might be able to pull this up faster than me, but it's something I'm just taking a quick glance at. I cannot recall the last time that Paul has played a god other than Tiamat and Raijin. I know all of Grand Finals of Phase 2 playoffs, he played 4 games of Tiamat. Then he comes in the very next week and immediately 3 more games of Tiamat. And then he goes to Raijin. He played Raijin against the Scarabs. He played Raijin.
Yeah.
But it's been Tiamat and Raijin exclusively at least since the Phase 2 Grand Finals for playoffs. I don't recall if he had something else in the semifinals. It's something I was trying to pull up in the process of kind of talking about it. But as I'm kind of looking down here, I'm just going to put it out there. Yes, it's a pick your poison battle against Paul. Do you want to take a lot of damage from Tiamat, or do you want to take a lot of damage from Raijin? But somebody has got to make I think somebody needs to make a stronger note against this player, because the fact he's allowed to play the top 2 mages for the last almost 10 games straight is just criminal.
Yeah, and prior to that, the games that he wasn't playing Tiamat or Raijin on, he had 3 Morgan Le Fay games in a row there. That, hey, still very successful for him. And then you start to get a little shakier once you go up. It was their match against the Dragons during the Phase 2 playoffs, where they had even more eclectic. You had like the Morrigan, I think there was a Soul game, a Hell game, and things got more varied there. But like you said, otherwise he's more than happy to just, if you're going to let him pick the top picks,
stop letting him.
He's going to do it each time.
Stop letting him. I think that's the point I'm trying to drive home. Ban one ban one and then pick the other and force him onto something else. With the Kings taking second pick in the picks and bans for game number 1, they may not have that opportunity to do so. Though Paul has shown he's more than comfortable being able to take some of those not top 2 or top 3 mages. He's had in the Morgan Le Fay, picked up Soul, Hell is always in his wheelhouse. And we cannot discount the fact that Ullr being meta means that Ullr mid for Paul and the Pooler is being meta as a potential. So we do see that banned away by the Camelot Kings along with the Morgan. And on the opposite side of the board, the Tartarus Titans, they take away the Rom, the Terra, and the Khepri that has been rising in this meta, specifically mostly for the Titans, but even Genetics has been showing a lot of this prowess.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's a very, very strong pick all around. I'm also excited to see them. This is something that is, I think, deserving to be banned against the Kings. Rom has been on like the front of people's minds, but it's got a 14 out of 16 win rate when the Kings are playing it. That is, to me, that's when you start thinking, yeah, we just stop Netruid. Like, we have seen games where the Kings have been struggling that have all of a sudden turned around thanks to that playstyle.
Oh.
You know, your Capris, your Terras, they're really great. Genetics is a great player, and controlling those are important. But I really do think that we've seen so much turnaround from just that one hunter that it changes everything.
Artio somehow made it through the picks and bans and gets a first pick by the Titans. We've been seeing exclusively this god is the only god, I think up until this game now,
Literally this
that has
game,
had
yeah.
a 100% ban rate. And the first time she is left open, the Titans go for a snap lock, making sure to grab that for themselves. On the other side, though, the Camelot Kings, they take a couple of top picks of their own. Tiamat for the mid lane, and then Geb, who we've been seeing rise, and pretty much ever since PBM's debut with it here in this second week of play, has almost been exclusively banned.
Yeah, he's been banned a whole ton. Not a lot of players have been able to scoop him up, except for, like you said, the Dragons, who played him twice the other day. And honestly, it's for good measure. He does a lot. The Cataclysm all of a sudden doing base damage adds a lot to it. I think his shield has already, and in the past, has been insane. The fact that you can peel someone out of some CC and give them extra health to work with is a huge deal. And I like his knockup as well, although that is just me. I like knockups. Knockups and Smite are some of the best CC that you can do, just because once you're in the air, it doesn't matter if your beads are there. You're not going to be able to get away from it. But the downside is that you're giving up, I don't even know how to say, like, you're giving up a lot, but you get Tiamat Geb servers. Like, you get a whole ton if you're the Kings here, too.
It's also one of the only CCs in the game that doesn't have any diminishing value.
Yes.
You know, a stun, you chain too many CCs together, that 2-second stun they initially had, well, it might only be, 1 second or 1.2 seconds or something. Knockup is going to be the same no matter what. Might just be slightly higher or slightly lower depending how far in the shockwave you are hit by it. But as the top 3 rounds out for the Camelot Kings, Tiamat Geb and a Cerberus third pick. I'm looking across the pond here for the Tartarus Titans. Not just that RTO, the Erlong Shen out of the jungle, one of the only warriors that we're really seeing stick around with these assassins, but a hell lock-in for Paul. So he completely went. He heard us. He said, all right, fine. If you want me to play something besides Tiamat, you want me to play something besides Raijin, they'll take one away. Who cares the other's up? He's going to go for his signature hell here for mid lane.
And most of what stopped the hell from coming through hasn't necessarily, well, part of the time might be Tiamat was let through, but most of it's been, she's been banned against him. It's rare day for that hell to make it through, and it's just because you have to ban things like this Uller now. You have to pay attention to those, and that opens up Paul to be able to showcase and flex what he has offering. But you also get a really good pick for them in the jungle. I mean, this Erlong Shin, like you said, someone that not only can keep up with the assassins, but he plays really well. The 9 turns blessing, having a big taunt and CC like that is just such a big deal. I mean, the top 3 for the Titans is a very, very powerful pick for their team.
And an Izanami to make the 4th pick for the Camelot Kings. It was a Sylvanas and a Yemoja ban, who somehow Yemoja made it all through this conversation. All of these gods that got banned away in this top 6, we looked at it and go, okay, yeah, that makes sense based off the meta or based off the team you're going against. And then we just completely forget about all the other gods that were left open because of it. Artio made it through, Hell made it. Even Cerberus, who's been banned away pretty highly as of recent, was able to slip through the cracks here and be picked up. And then a Yemoja as a final ban from the Kings. On the other side, Hunbats and Raven banned away, throwing a little bit of respect over towards Captain Twig.
And I actually really like this because not only, like you said, respect towards Twig, and Twig's Hunbats was nuts the other day. I want to see more of that anytime I get the opportunity. But I actually am really intrigued, just to counting it up, like with all of the support bans plus grabbing 2 Guardians on the side, you've taken away 6 of them. And the thing that's really interesting to me is that there's still so many that at least in my mind, are still very prominent and good.
That's a set. And there's no Hunter on their team. Cyclone Spin,
Yeah, Cyclone Spin
is going to be playing set this game. I saw it hovered on the other side by the Kings, and they said, no, let's grab our Hunter here. Probably don't want to lose our Izanami. And they said, oh, yeah, set is in the game. Hey, Cyclone, you want to play set and pair that with a Ganesh out of that lane? One thing with this patch, we also got a slight buff to Ganesh. His Turn of Fate got a lower cooldown, which threw me by surprise. The fact that it was a 16-second cooldown on his primary clear, that one kind of blew my mind, so seeing that toned down. Maybe some Rise of Ganesh, or maybe at least just from Aurora here, teaming up with a I just can't believe we have a set right now. I feel like we're dialing back a couple of seasons when we had the Assassin and Mage Hunter meta.
I mean, last year it was the biggest thing. Honestly, if that Hell wasn't locked in and they had something that was maybe more ambiguous up there, if they had locked in a Hunter there instead, that would be saying it was set mid, because Paul liked to play that last year. We saw it in solo lane a few times as well. I remember Finoke looking really good and using that to counter out like Cthulhu's a lot. But this is something that Cyclone Spin has played in the past and has looked good on in the past. I'm not going to doubt too much about it, except that when I look at this Titans team, it does, like, its strengths are all shifted towards the latter half of the game. They really need to make it past this first 10 minutes, and then things are going to be perfectly in the clear for them. I guess Erlong might be able to get his hands dirty a little bit before then, but ultimately, you know, Hell, we've seen some early double kills, but really shows a lot of prowess towards the late. Same thing, Ganesh. I mean, good luck doing anything before level 5. You're okay, you've got silence, you've got some roots, you're decent, but you're not necessarily the end-all be-all in the duo lane. Good news is you're going up against Geb, and he's kind of in the same boat as you. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of fireworks at the very beginning of this one, but it does shift very dramatically, in my eyes, in favor of the Titans the longer it goes on. That healing specifically is really going to be a thorn in their side.
And the Tartarus Titans have picked up a big, what I like to call a W key team. You have a Hell, Erlong, an Artio, a Ganesh, and a Set. All gods that just want to run you down no matter what. The early stage, as you highlighted, is going to be their biggest struggle. The Camelot Kings, they've got a decent answer to it. Cerberus is going to be able to maintain himself in the lane. The Geb will be able to keep this Izanami safe, win this Ganesh and Set. Inevitably do get very aggressive in the dual lane. They'll have decent clear because of the nature of Izanami's passive basic attacks, able to cleave through the entire wave. And this kind of earlier game, Susano pulled in by Captain Twig. Probably not, I'll be honest, probably not the player I would have expected to bring Susano out.
No, honestly, I mean, we see it way more out of the Leviathans. I would give it maybe even to like Lasbra. Like, there's a couple of other junglers that I would see picking this up before I would have thought Twig to do so, but it's actually one of their greatest strengths here. I think he's going to be able to really guide his team early on, try to help shut them down. The biggest struggle, I think, is going to be that mid 2v2. Erlong Hell is going to have a very powerful 1-2 punch. Tiamat has the power and capabilities there, but I think it leans much more heavily on the Susano.
This Susano to round out the draft for the Camelot Kings. We'll see if it's going to be enough for them to try and stop this winning streak of the Titans. Titans want to maintain it. Can they do it here in game number 1? Let's find out with Dulcin and Mifflin.
What a matchup to end the weekend. Titans versus Kings, and the Titans riding high on a win streak right now. And the Camelot Kings will do their best to put this one to bed. The last time we saw these two teams play was in the Phase 2 playoffs. And the Titans did not have a hard time up against the Camelot Kings. They looked great. So we'll see if some, I would say halftime adjustments, whatever, mid-phase adjustments give the Camelot Kings a fighting chance here. In this one, big changes, though, in the meta itself. Mifflin, maybe that makes Set a little bit more viable here in the duo lane.
So in that last set between the Titans and the Camelot Kings, Layers played Erlang Shen 3 times, I believe. It was 2 or 3 times, and every single one of those games, he walked into mid at level 2 and killed somebody on the first wave. So we'll see if that's something you can keep up here today. Is wow, Paul taking a ton of damage throughout the early, but he's hell. Yeah, he's hell.
Nice, Myth. That was
he's
good.
just going to heal.
Spot on. The synergy is already flowing. This is great. I was going to say we fist bumped. Now I kind of did anyway, just to let the viewers at home know that the synergy is really flying. Layers at level 2 does go mid, but it have to be sneaky to get a kill. Or special to get a kill here. Maybe not. That's my fault. That's on me. I'm sorry. Paul gets first blood in this one. Layers walks forward. Captain Twig down. And Layers helps out the mid laner for first blood.
Look, man, you can't write that, right? I mean, the Tartarus Titans, they're not hiding this strategy.
This is not surprising anyone. He's
just
literally standing in lane.
That's what he does.
And that's why I said it's going to take something special to make this work. And I used Blink, so I guess that closed the gap. And that's that level 2 from Erlong Shen. You get the pin, you get the knock-up, and then you've got Paul, who's able to get in there and has damage. And so this is a great start for the Tartarus Titans. Layers specifically has been playing so well for this team recently. And I think on the flip side of the coin, Myth, it's worth talking about Captain Twig. Look, he's mentioned in the interview with BMT. BMT has kind of referenced it as well. This is going to be a learning experience for Captain Twig. Clearly the guy is one of the best junglers there is. Was incredible, or very, very good at least, with the Erlong Shens, the Osiris's, the Gilgamesh's. Assassins are it right now. And Captain Twig is going to have to find his comfort levels with these types of picks. So the Susano definitely interesting. Not great to be behind this early in the game. Netrioid trying to walk away, but will he be able to? Shell helps him out. Now Aurora has the damage turned on to him. And we will part the seas here in the duo lane.
So legitimately, though, Captain Twig in multiple interviews now has stated that he loves the warrior playstyle, cycling spin. Dashes in there and makes me catch my breath, thinking the Netroid might have been a little bit of trouble. Yeah, they're just not going to let
us talk about it.
Yeah, but why not just keep playing the Erlang Shens, the Osirises, and the Gilgameshes? It clearly still works. Layers legitimately first bloods you at like 30 seconds into the game. I think that there is certainly a world where if Captain Twig doesn't find himself enjoying this assassin full damage style, he doesn't have to go towards it. The Mannequin Scepter auto attack warriors still exist, and they're still incredibly strong.
I think way too early to sound the alarms on Twig here in this set, at least. You know, falling once for first blood is not game
Agreed.
over. But the first few sets of the phase is where we'll keep our eyes on the jungle specifically and see if a trend starts to develop. It's still way too early to start hitting the button on Captain Twig right now. Does find himself one level down. Susano in the late game has a good opportunity to duel out with some of the squishiness that the Tartarus Titans might have at that point in the game. But this is all kind of ignoring the fact that Paul gets Hell here out of mid, and Hell is the one who picks up first blood. And you're going to go into that Doom Orb first, and scary, I think, for the Camelot Kings once Paul gets to that point where there's some power in that build and he's able to make plays.
It may have been Variety who brought Hell back to the forefront of the SPL, but Paul, for those of you who have been around for a while, you realize Paul is one of the premier Hell players who have ever done it. Has a huge duel history, loves this god inside of that mode, has taken it into SMITE in the past years. This year, though, as I highlighted earlier, was actually Variety that brings it in, but Paul's certainly a guy who can play this god at the highest level, very comfortable in those Hell boots, and looks like he might be going towards a Doom Orb inside of that first slot. That's a very aggressive start for a Hell. I mean, the damage output, we were already seeing it upwards of like 250 per ability already. He's generating a ton of threat.
Yeah, Paul's a happy boy right now with the pick that he's got and the way that the early game has gone for himself here. And then you got Benji on this RDO. I mean, I love this draft for the Tartarus Titans. Especially because there's Geb. Myth, you and I got to talk a little bit about, or Ganesh, excuse me. I was looking at Geb as I finished that sentence. We talked a little bit about it in the SEC earlier on today. And, you know, Ganesh, as the desk mentioned, receives small buffs here recently, makes him a little bit better. But those Dharmic Pillars, so disruptive, and the highest damaging ability in the game.
Is that true?
Yeah, if you get hit with every single tick.
Uh-huh.
And I really hope you're right about this because I'm
Wait,
just quoting you. You told me this.
What?
You told me it's the highest damaging ability
just
in the game.
gaslight all the chat in the middle of the first SPL cast we
Well,
had
it depends. Is it right or wrong? Is it the highest damaging ability in the game?
Well, I think so.
You think so? Fantastic. I love my analysts here at the SPL. I think you're gaslighting me, Myth. I don't know. Benji and Layers, they'll team up here right around the blue buff of the Camelot Kings. Variety's able to pick that one up just fine. And this is going to be an intriguing matchup here, Myth. The RDO up against the Cerberus, because RDO is just so difficult to deal with. Not only in the team fights, but the laning phase can be somewhat frustrating, and maybe the Cerberus with some of that anti-heal utility, I suppose, if you want to word it like that, might help out in lane here against Benji.
Yeah, Variety should be able to hold his own. He's got himself past that like critical period where Benji should have been able to find the majority of his pressure, and now he's able to get some of that healing back. Every time Benji goes for this poke, you can see it's returned to Variety at least a little bit inside of this one, and it looks like it could be a bulwark of hope for Variety. We've seen that item have a bit of resurgence here in the tail end of Season 8, and that should help out a fair deal up against Benji. I mean, a large infusion of magical defense, one of the largest infusions of HP that you could get. Layers blinking in. Does not land the ultimate, but maybe isolates Variety.
Blink for blink. Captain Twig will stay alive. Layers, that's a lot of damage. Onto the Erlong Shed, immediately into the Typhoon. Oh, it's massive! From the Camelot Kings, great setup here. Will Captain Twig finish one of the kills, or is Variety gonna go down? It's a leap on out from the Cerberus onto Layers. Variety will complete what he started, gets a kill. The shell is fantastic, but the Dharmic Pillars there from Aurora will put Variety in the dirt for the first time this game. Three-man Cataclysm from Genetics. Big man Ting rotating over from mid. The lockdown from Aurora keeps Genetics at bay.
Genetics now trying to roll himself out of there. Gets caught out by the cripple field and likely forces his life, but nice knock-up keeps him alive for just another moment. Benji, credit for the kill this time. And the Camelot Kings, despite having one of the more impressive CC chains we've seen, Stygian Torment immediately into the Typhoon, do lose out inside of that engagement, and Cyclone Spin, with the pressure that he has in duo, has stolen the red buff all on its own.
That was a massive engage from the Camelot Kings. That 1-2 from Variety and Twig was a lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, it kind of stopped there. You're able to get the kill onto Layers, but then the rotations through from the rest of the Tartarus Titans. And then despite actually even great disengage, Genetics got 3 in the stun there. So the Camelot Kings play it pretty well, but the Titans just a little bit stronger right now. Voidstone for Benji helping out in that fight there as well. So now you do have some pressure over on the right side of the map. You finally see Layers make his way over here. Benji's got a kill and an assist now. But could be solo kill potential here for Cyclone Spin. Are we tower diving? We're dark portaling, at least. The minions held up for just a moment. Netrioid without his ultimate. Now may be susceptible to Cyclone Spin, but in behind Cyclone Spin is Genetics. Does not have the ultimate, and no chance to lock down Cyclone Spin, who will dash on out.
Looked to me like Cyclone Spin was trying to line up that skewer just to
Yep,
find
looked
that
like it.
last hit, but that Dark Portal silence
If that hits, you
removes
think
that.
he's going in?
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%.
For sure.
Even if Dark Portal just misses, I'm pretty sure Cyclone Spin's headed into that tower. But
Sure.
fortunately for Netrioid, or maybe not fortunately, he does it all himself, able to land that ability and maintain his life, but can't take away from the pressure that we've already seen from the Tartarus Titans Hunter. Maybe I shouldn't call him a Hunter as he is playing an Assassin right now. Cyclone Spin dominant in the lane.
Cyclone's been jumped on by Captain Twig. Beads used, not enough. Genetics snags the kill that Captain Twig set up. In and out, kill the Camelot Kings, and they get away with one. And that's a good look for Captain Twig. You know, you had the good setup on right, now you get one over here on left. Keeping Cyclone Spin down is going to be important for this Kings team. Unfortunately for them, Gold Fury not up, but they will take the Scorpion.
Just alleviating some of that pressure in the dual lane is so huge. Captain Twig needed to make that rotation. Netrioid needed that assistance because the Tartarus Titans have been running away with the pressure on the left-hand side, and it seems like it was an attempted red buff invade, but Paul spots out Variety.
Dharmic Pillars from Aurora will split up this fight. It's a great ultimate from the Ganesh. That'll push the Camelot Kings back. There is no mana for Captain Twig. This is an awkward fight for the Susano. Layers in first, already used. That 9 turns blessing, and the heal comes in a little bit after. Aurora and Layers chase down Variety in the mid lane, and they'll get him.
Meanwhile, the rest of the Kings say, all right, well, the Titans came for our red buff. We're not going to give that one up for free.
Oh, no,
Genetics,
Genetics,
though?
too.
Yeah, we're going to give him up for free. Benji should be able to fish this one down.
God, the Titans are just running the Kings down in every aspect right now. Kill happens in mid. Kill happens over on left. And where the Kings left off a moment ago, after you get a pick onto Cyclone Spin, you're sad because the Gold Fury isn't there. The Titans will not have that same issue. Gold Fury has now spawned thanks to the Kings taking the Scorpion a moment ago. And so a couple of kills and then a nice cash infusion with the Gold Fury for the Titans. 1.6k in the lead, just under 10 minutes in.
1,000 experience as well, which is, I would say, about equivalent value here as it jumps up to 1,500 after a couple of camps get cleared out on the left-hand side by the Tartarus Titans. This is the Camelot Kings just struggling to maintain parity throughout the early game because they legitimately are just waiting for that late game phase. They've got great scaling in their own right. The front line is steadfast between Genetics and Variety. Your late game hyper carries being Tiamat and Izanami feels pretty good for you as well, and can't slight Captain Twig's ability to find these huge engagements. Typhoon, one of the most disruptive ultimates inside of the Assassin tree that you can have in the game, especially considering some of the itemization changes that Assassins have seen recently. But, I mean, Gore highlighted on the desk very well. The Tartarus Titans have very strong early game thanks to the Erlang Shen, and incredibly strong late game prowess as well thanks to just maybe the pillar of sustain that is hell out of mid.
And now we're getting more data, and again, this game far from over, just as we mentioned early on, but starting to get to that point, especially if the King, or the Titans rather, keep playing at this speed, fast around the Pyromancer for sure. Cyclone Spin kind of rounds the corner here. Could be a collapse from Genetics. Cyclone Spin is going to try to turn around the damage, but Dark Portal plus Cataclysm too much. Netrioid puts down Cyclone Spin on the right side of the map, though. Can the Titans make something happen? Captain Twig will get the kill onto Aurora. Out of the Dharmic Pillars he goes, but Layers is waiting on the other side. Paul on a killing spree. And the Camelot Kings, they'll get 2 kills across the map here, Myth. Titans able to trade back 1.
But the neutral objective also goes the way of the Tartarus Titans, and what was just 1,600 has pushed itself closer to 2,000 in their favor. The macro game very much favoring the Order side right now. They are controlling every single one of these neutral objectives, and now having desynced the Pyromancer and the Primal Fury, there is no kind of counterplay for the Camelot Kings. They have to show up and put up a defense wherever the Tartarus Titans decide to go, unless the Camelot Kings are able to just stall out the Gold Fury once it respawns and then head over to the Pyromancer if they're willing to seed it.
Poor Cyclone Spin has just been jumped on a couple of times over there in the duo lane. And so it was a 2-level gap a little bit ago. Netrioid was a couple levels behind. Cyclone Spin has been slowed down.
He's been getting camped.
He's been getting camped, right. Right. But that camp has culminated to a closing of the XP gap. 1-level lead, depending on where the waves flow, it appears is going to be the case over on left. And so we really haven't seen, outside of some poke damage and some attempted engages from Cyclone Spin, the true power of the set here in the fight. You wonder if it does raise some concerns about a lack of ranged physical damage. You know, you have the traditional mage and the ranged abilities of Paul, of course. But you won't have that ADC sitting way in the back line slinging out autos in these team fights.
I think the team fight probably not too poor for the Tartarus Titans just because of how much in-combat healing they have, not just from the Hell, but also self-sustain for Layers and more team-wide sustain from Benji as well. It's more so the concern for the Tartarus Titans once they start to be on those Phoenix Siege defenses or Phoenix Siege offenses,
Yeah, good
where
point.
they're really going to be missing out on this Hunter. It's
Good
going to be
point.
so much harder to push into these towers from a range because legitimately it's just Paul trying to put out those autos.
Twig is mid, so is Aurora. BMT here as well. Thought maybe Twig for a moment would have taken his portal, and that would have been a very, very bad idea. So Layers off to a great start at level 2, slowed things down a little bit. Captain Twig was off to a bad start because of Layers. And admittedly, Myth has kind of turned things around for himself here. Jotun's into Brawler's Beat Stick, and then another mace item on the other side. And I think that's the reason. Far from sounding the alarms on Captain Twig at minute 1, and started to make a little bit more of an impact here as the game has gone on.
No, he's sitting very high on the damage charts as well, actually 200 more than Layers at this point. So Captain Twig obviously having himself a very good game here. I believe it will be a Crusher inside of that third slot for him just to help him out with a little bit more damage potential. That dot damage is going to be very nice for finishing off some of these kills, even from a range if he decides to shoot out that Typhoon very quickly. And he's going to need every single bit of damage that he can get. The Tartarus Titans, if they are allowed to, escape, regroup, and re-heal inside these team fights, could make it very hard.
Oh my goodness, Layers does so much damage. Captain Twig is going to dash away. But wow, that was a lot. And that was quick from Layers. A chance to actually get a kill here onto Variety. Layers has the 9 turns blessing. Variety's got the beads, but they can't beads out damage. And Variety falls. Layers on a warpath. Layers was on a warpath just now. He saw Twig, mad that kill got away, and then all eyes turned towards Variety. An interesting call. Maybe no other option for Variety to go in there, despite knowing that the Titans were pretty strong in numbers on the right side.
I mean, he can't retreat back to his tier 1 tower. That's
No
a
real
death sentence.
chance.
Tries to head back to the tier 2 and gets caught out on his pathing there. Layers' damage output thanks to Crusher, Stone Cutting Sword, so incredibly strong, where the Camelot Kings
good call.
undeterred. Primal Fury and nobody's around.
That's right. The Tartarus Titans might be able to fight after the fact, but it looks like this Primal Fury is going to go down quietly, and that's a good call. That's what you have to do, and the Titans are controlling these neutral objectives. You see a couple of them on right. Make the call to go on over towards that Primal Fury. So a slight dip down in the gold for the Camelot Kings, but then right back up for the Tartarus Titans after they knocked down Tier 1 and Tier 2 on right. So now a win condition opened up for the Tartarus Titans. You win one big fight, and you've got an exposed Phoenix already to work towards.
Yeah, even if the Tartarus Titans get the Fire Giant themselves, they can immediately fall back towards that Phoenix as Paul finds himself in some trouble, surrounded by 4 in the jungle.
Oh my god, is he going to live? Is he going to live? A lot of ultimates on to
No
Paul,
way.
but Paul will walk right on out. The healing plus Aegis plus beads. It's a costly escape, but it's an escape nonetheless. The Camelot Kings spend Captain Twig and Netrioi's ultimate. And it looks like Captain Twig's blink as well, trying to kill off Paul. And this Hell is just a nemesis. Mantle of Discord picked up 2nd overall for Paul. Some of that extra defense helping out.
Yeah, that stun as well going to be so huge for him. Look, man, Paul is so hard to kill at this point. You may have missed your opportunity to look for these kills. Instead, it's now his damage output, probably bar none, some of the highest on the map. Maybe not bar none. We saw what Layers was able to do, and he's doing
Also,
a
Aurora's
lot.
in the game on Ganesh, who has the
highest
highest damage ability in the
Yep,
game.
that's true.
Could be more fighting here on right, especially since the Titans are around as Pyromancer. And this one, in the same way that the Kings quietly took the Fury, the Titans will quietly take the Pyromancer. And right, there's not really a chance for the Kings to get into that. It's going to happen to Variety again. It looks like Stygian Torment used, stun on the backside. Layers has taunt, has his ultimate, won't need it. He's on a killing spree with the good old-fashioned auto attacks. Stone Cutting Sword plus chin size, big power spike for this Erlang Shen. And poor Variety has been bullied over on the right.
Man, he is just shredding HP bars at this point. You know what, Dave? I knew it. I knew Erlang Shen was going to survive this 8.9 patch, and clearly Layers is putting that on display right here. The Tartarus Titans playing with a whole lot of momentum, but the Camelot Kings have done a good job in the last 17 minutes to at least slow down some of this bleeding. But at the end of the day, it's still 4,000 gold for the Order team.
We're sieging up the Tier 1 tower here, and Cyclone Spin's going to rotate in. Remember, this is where maybe some of those concerns about the lack of ranged physical damage come to fruition, because Cyclone Spin can't stand, just inside the tower line, just outside of it. and whittle down that health bar. You have to win a fight beforehand, maybe, if you're the Tartarus Titans, but maybe no real concern. A lot of anti-heal picked up here, Myth. I mean, Pestilence, Brawler's Beatstick, Divine Ruin, all of it there. Tainted Steel for Netrioid. I mean, I guess you have to invest that much, not only against Paul on Hell, but you've got Benji with some sustain, Layers on the other side of his ultimate as well. Will heal up once the heal portion of the ultimate rings out. And so it's probably the right amount of investment from the Camelot Kings to keep some of that healing at bay.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I wouldn't argue with a little bit more
Even
anti-heal,
more.
right? I mean, it couldn't hurt at all. The Tartarus Titans have just got so much sustain on their side. Every single member just about is going to be affected by any effective anti-heal the Camelot Kings decide to pick up. But as of right now, the pace has slowed down, hasn't it? The Tartarus Titans not really confident enough to step up to the Fire Giant proper, or waiting
no
for the
Fury.
Pyro. Yeah, the Gold Fury's not up either. No towers on the right-hand side, and no chance of variety
My
to get his
goodness.
own blue buff this time
This
around.
poor guy, man.
He can't play. Layers is
On
look,
cooldown,
he's
on
camping.
cooldown, Layers is walking to the right side of the map and invading the blue buff. And we saw what happened to Twig when Twig showed up. Had to use everything to get out. Saw what happened when Variety showed up and actually tried to fight. Had to use everything and still didn't get out. Layers is a menace right now, especially when you pair that with Benji or Paul or Aurora or Cyclone Spin. Seems like any two-man pairing, 1+ Layers, is going to be enough to have a successful invade if your eyes look there. About a minute left on that Gold Fury, so maybe that's when we start to see things warm back up a little bit. Haven't seen a full-on 5v5 just yet. Variety in a tough spot now to give the Kings an advantage. Maybe this is what you need if you're the Kings. Cyclone Spin survives. The Aegis is huge.
No
on the
way.
other side of the Dark Portal. Nearly gets the kill, but Layers will finish the work that Cyclone Spin started. Might even make it a two-piece. Cataclysm from Genetics will not peel out Netrioid. Layers has got a double. He's on a rampage, and Big Man Tings will do his best to close this gap, and he won't do enough. Big fight for the Titans.
Man, Cyclone Spin does so much damage inside of that fight. I don't think Twig was expecting that level of burst to come his way, but Skewer, with that many soldiers around you, are always going to be able to do it. And Paul, with a moment of opportunity, yeah, he's going to take out that Tier 1 tower. Now, another Tier 2 exposed for the Tartarus Titans, and we're approaching that magical time in the SPL, 20 minutes in, when Fire Giant becomes a realistic goal for either one of these teams. But Titans, with so much pressure in duo, might as well pick up the easy objectives first.
Yeah, why
Gold
not?
Fury, it shouldn't last too long.
Why not? I mean, we've seen how fast the Pyromancer's gone down. I imagine the Gold Fury will suffer a similar fate unless the Titans want to fight first, in which case the health bars of the Kings are the ones that will be going down quickly. Dominance from the Titans in the first 20 minutes of game number 1, and they show no signs of slowing down here. The Kings are showing up. Netrioid back in base, so he has a long walk on back to the Fury. Benji finds a stun on the front line of this fight. It does get reset. The Titans not liking the look just yet. We'll take a breath before heading back to the pit.
Yeah, just give him a moment to heal Aurora back up, and they've got plenty of avenues to do so. And once he is back and healthy, gotta expect him to pull it yet again and try and force this fight.
Oh, decent poke there from Paul. Gold Fury started up again. Bracer down. That's helping out the Titans just a little bit here. Camelot Kings walking forward. Genetics with a big Cataclysm could set up a good fight for the Camelot Kings, but you gotta be alive to get the ultimate off. Genetics has about as low health as you can have without being dead, and so the Gev is gonna have to think twice about going into this fight. And I think with your support out of things, you got no choice but to go back. Benji trying to stop the back, unable to do so. The Titans got what they came for. They get the Gold Fury, push the Camelot Kings back to their side of the map.
That does at least cost Benji his blink, so that won't be a great initiation tool if the Titans decide to head on over to the right-hand side and try and push down this Pyromancer, which seems to be the call already. Layers grouped up over there, Aurora's with them, and I've seen Layers' damage, and I gotta think he's enough to do it on his own. It is a pull of the Pyromancer, but Twig blinks in. Great silence from Aurora to make sure Layers stays alive.
Yeah, Aurora loves this pick.
Woo!
He loves that silence. Captain Twig jumped on. Dharmic Pillar's huge. The taunt nearly brings Captain Twig right back in. This is a good-looking fight for the Camelot Kings, though. Netrioid will get the shutdown onto Layers. The health bar's just too low right now for the Tartarus Titans. They're going to have to walk away, utilize Paul for some of that extra healing. Good root on the back end, but Aurora whittled away. Netrioid's got a double, a third around the corner, but Big Man Tings will take it.
Tartarus Titans showing a little bit too much confidence there, trying to two-man the Pyromancer. It's not going to be that easy. Cyclone Spin going it alone? No shot.
Now he's walking away, has to use the Aegis. Paul sends some good damage the Camelot Kings way. No way, right? There's no way this works out. It's just the carries
He's out.
of the Tartarus Titans. Cyclone Spin will get out. And maybe if what this is delaying the Fire Giant, not allowing the Kings to get it, it did work out for the Titans.
Man, I mean, Cyclone Spin dropped like 3 different people down to sub 30% HP, essentially all on his own. This set is swinging for the
God, the
fences
Hidden Blade
already.
is huge.
Yeah, Hidden Blade looks like it could be a Heart Seeker coming up next, just a burst or get an additional burst of damage on the initial engagement. But the Camelot Kings still playing with a good deal of time here. Can step up to the Fire Giant. It's burning slowly, and the Titans, they're hovering in the wings.
Titans are close. Paul could be the one to poke down some of this damage. We haven't had that vintage Paul moment just yet. Is now the time? Are you going to step in, steal it away? The answer is no. The Kings will get it quickly. And unfortunate, it was a delay on the FG, but the FG falls nonetheless. Unfortunate for the Titans, but a great turnaround now in this game for the Camelot Kings, who have been way behind, still behind in gold, but now on a Fire Giant power play, I can break this game open.
Yeah, 3,000 gold at the 24-minute mark means much less than it did just 13 minutes ago. The Camelot Kings
Variety gets
playing
a
with
blue.
a lot of the lead, and Variety finally finds himself a little
Nice.
bit of a blue buff. Some additional CDR
Good for him.
going to be coming his way, so, as well as some man.
Where's Layers?
Yo,
He's
he's got to be
on the
working.
map. He's lurking
Yo,
somewhere.
Twig, come help me out, bro. Layers has got to be
He's
around.
got to be somewhere.
But he isn't, not this time.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Variety, for your maybe second blue buff
Yeah,
this
might
game.
be. Might be. I mean, you get the first one, of course, but it has been a while since Layers let that one go. Probably smart from Layers not to go onto that side of the map. Not right now. Not right before your team has to defend up against a Fire Giant team in the Camelot Kings, but slow on the push right now are the Kings. Need some time to go back, reset, spend up some of that gold, and lots of towers still on the map to siege up. So the Titans have a decent cushion here, Miff, where you're probably not too worried about those tier 1s, maybe a soft defense around a tier 2, but yeah, plenty of time before you're worried about your Phoenixes.
But the defense in the Tartarus Titans is something we brought up a little bit earlier. Once they decide to dig in their heels, it's an all-in commitment. If they want Cyclone Spin to be a factor in these fights, they have to take the fight properly and run in.
Variety takes a whole lot of damage. That silence from Aurora is sneaky, so scary. I mean, Variety walks forward, you get silence, you're not able to jump out for a couple of seconds, and you're taking a lot of damage. As you see here, Typhoon out from Captain Twig. So it is a soft defense from the Titans around the tier 2 tower, but still enough ranged poke to get the tower down nonetheless. Captain Twig not having his ultimate, decent-sized loss as far as getting in, scrapping, and eliminating a backliner. But the Titans have done enough, though, to push the Kings back. Only 2 minutes left in this Fire Giant power play. But it's moments like this where the fights can swing. Benji, double stun on the front line. Netrioid jumped on. Both actives will get used here. Layers pulled on in. The Darmic Pillar is huge from Aurora, but it does not do enough. The Camelot King's able to jump out, jump back in, stun onto Aurora. The sudden surge from the King is here, and it is swift. Tartarus Titans down to 3.
Still minute 30 on Fire Giant as well, and Captain Twig finds the pull onto Paul. That could set up for the rest of the squad, but the additional healing and movement speed of Hell should be able to work her way out of here.
God, the Titans just getting chased down now by the Camelot Kings, who've been chased down in every other moment of this game, now returning the favor to the Titans. The Phoenix finally gets reached here by the Camelot Kings. 20 seconds on Aurora, 25 on Layers by the time I'm done saying it. The mid-lane Phoenix will fall. You can take a deep breath if you're the Titans. You've lost your mid-Phoenix, but it looks like the nightmare's over for the time being.
Still an entire minute left on the Fire Giant. Could be a tier 2 tower before Layers even respawns, and then they can fall back towards that Primal Fury if they so choose. We'll see how confident the Camelot Kings are playing right now. It's a lot of gold in pocket. Gotta remember, it still was about 3,000 in favor of the Tartarus Titans at the beginning of this Fire Giant power play for the Camelot Kings. Has now swung 2,000 in their favor. So look at that gold in hand, 2,000 for just about every single member of the Camelot Kings. But gold in pocket is not gold in build, which means you're not playing with a lead as of yet. So I gotta agree with the decision making of the Camelot Kings. Let's head back and spend it all up.
Yeah, now we'll go back and actually convert potential to real-time lead as far as builds go. We wondered if there would be more anti-heal investment, Miff. There is. Netrioid has gone into Toxic Blade. And Netrioid, look, he started to do some serious damage in this game. It was a double kill earlier on, nearly a triple that Big Man Ting's got the last hit on. And that extra bit of anti-heal could be a big difference maker, and it might be the big difference maker that we've seen. The Titans were controlling this game. You're talking 5-6K gold in the lead, and the Titans able to, or the Kings rather, able to turn it around, grab an FG, and a great chance to do so here again with the mid lane Phoenix down. Titans might have to step up and contest.
This is going to be the first time we get a look at the Tartarus Titans 5-on-5 potential since that last fumble around the Pyromancer, at least in neutral territory, not counting
that's a lot of
these
damage.
defensive situations. And yeah, man,
That's
that
a hidden
damage
blade,
output.
Brock, wow.
Yeah, that's just skewer. So I guess we're not worried about his damage towards gods. It is just that damage on
And
objectives.
I guess from
that
a
you're
range,
missing out
right?
on.
I mean, every 5 seconds you can throw out a skewer, and if you're hitting your target, you're melting down a big percentage of that health. You know, maybe that's an advantage here the Titans can take advantage of, where you're getting some good poke in and you're just getting those health bars lower while you have enough healing to top off your health bars on the other side. Left side wave pushing into this tier 2 tower, not Phoenix sieging yet, but something the Titans will have to consider if this Fire Giant dance takes a little while.
Look at the vision advantage on the map, already going the way of the Camelot Kings, and they've got so many sentries in pocket. The Tartarus Titans, on the other hand, only have the 1 sentry ward, so if every war is won on a battle of information, the Camelot Kings are playing with house money.
Oh, Layers blinks and he's found Captain Twig. Twig quick on the beads. Will dash out. You know, Twig clearly didn't know Layers was there, but we had the privilege of seeing every ounce of that. You could see what was going on in Layers' mind. Twig is overextended in mid. I'm blinking in immediately. If I can get a pick here, my team has a great shot at this next Fire Giant. So beads used by Twig, but blink used by Layers. Defensive down on one side, offensive down on the other. But Layers probably feeling okay about that. Captain Twig's going to want to go in, and he's not going to have the ability to shrug off any CC.
So now the Tartarus Titans do still have to fight into this dominant vision control from the Camelot Kings. I mean, they're not allowed to step past exactly where Benji's standing right now. That's the defensive line, the line of scrimmage, if you would, and the Camelot Kings playing around it very well right now. Fire Giant has spawned up, but they've kept their eyes on the fight.
Roll in from Genetics. He's going to send a couple members of the Titans on back. Layers was on in mid, not on mid. He was in mid. I guess on mid. If you
And now he's on base.
Now he's on base, on Fountain. Pushes out that fire wave just a little bit in mid. That left side wave has been dealt with. The left side tier 2 takes a hefty amount of poke, but the Tiamat minions plus wave not enough. The chunk damage catching you off guard
freaks me
again.
out.
Yeah, it is wild.
That's variety. He's tanky.
And look, and this is Cyclone Spin we're talking about. It feels like it's a matter of time before one of those Hidden Blade skewers connects onto a carry, and Cyclone just goes in. I mean, he's gone in 3v1 on his own.
I gotta think it's like
anyone.
60% of Netroid's health. I just gotta think.
It's gotta be. Look, that's all. It is a lot of damage coming out of Cyclone. He's an assassin, effectively, right? I mean, the way
Legitimately.
he is. I mean, it's, you know, normally you're used to seeing him play hunters, but he will do assassin things, and that's how you want to fight. If you're Cyclone Spin moving forward here. Does that give the Titans the presence in the jungle, though? It's hard outside of Cyclone Spin to find this ranged poke, except for maybe Paul. The Fire Giant started by the Camelot Kings. It's enhanced this time around. We've delayed enough to get an enhanced Fire Giant on the board, but it's reset by the Kings.
Benji is the
Dharmic
first
Pillars.
one forward. Dharmic Pillars dropped by a roar, but the Camelot Kings disengage very well here, but it's costly for Variety, who loses out on 50% of his HP, whereas the Tartarus Titans, it really is just that Dharmic Pillars commitment. And now the Titans, for the first time in the last 3 or 4 minutes, are actually able to step into the Fire Giant pit and get some vision themselves.
And that ult is not on a horrible cooldown for Aurora. You know, the Dharmic Pillars will be back pretty shortly here. I mean, it probably feels like an eternity for Aurora. You'd like to have it right now, especially with the grouping, the jungle fight about to happen, but if the Titans can play patient, it's already halfway to being back, so maybe another 30 seconds or so here for Aurora. This is kind of the first time if we've seen the Titans with the presence, though, around the Fire Giant. It's usually been the Kings extending forward, and the Titans kind of having to step back and then re-engage off of something else. But kind of for the first time now, we're seeing the Titans walk a bit further forward and make the Camelot Kings think about their position.
And it is so much easier to hold a defensive line than it is to push into one. The Tartarus Titans now in a much better position than they were just a moment ago. But having allowed the Camelot Kings to fully reset 4 members of the Kings in base right now essentially would have been an opportunity for the Tartarus Titans to try and pull out that Fire Giant, but they don't have the aerial view like we do, and the Camelot Kings, knowing that they're still playing with about a 3,000 gold lead, likely calling the Tartarus Titans bluff, saying, look, there's no chance you guys are going to go ahead and pull that, so we're going to go ahead and pull the Oni Fury ourselves and generate some pressure on the map. That left side tier 2 tower that is already peppered down, well, now it's at a real risk of falling.
And there's always this risk, you know, if you're the Kings and you pull the Oni Fury right there, if the Titans are still all 5 on the right side of the map, there's a slight risk that they immediately try to fight. but a couple members went over to that red buff, so that there was no real threat for the Fire Giant there, as you sort of highlight, Myth. And so we're back to reset. The Oni Furies plus the Tiamat minions on left might finish off that tower here eventually. But that gap's starting to close. You know, the Titans had this big lead. Camelot Kings get a Fire Giant off a great fight, and they pull into the lead. We're all level 20 now, except for the supports. We're getting damn near close to full build for everyone in the game. Feels about as even as we've been. Hell, we're tied up in kills as well. Why not? We're dead even, 32 minutes in. Enhanced Fire Giant started up by the Kings. It's going quickly. The Tartarus Titans, you gotta get in. You gotta get in now. Dharmic Pillars down. The Kings secure the FG. Genetics locked into the Dharmic Pillars, but he will walk right on out. The Titans show some face, but not enough. Camelot Kings will take the Enhanced Fire Giant, and they've got waves pushing.
Look, man, all these objective play that's going where the Kings, I think, is draft-based. They have a Hunter, and the Tartarus Titans do not. So it's so much easier to look towards the Fire Giant, to look towards these tower sieges, and with the left sides here too, already under threat of the Oni minion wave, as well as some lizards coming from this Tiamat. The right side getting pressured by all 5 gods of the Camelot Kings. What's the answer for the Tartarus Titans? They have to dig in their heels and fight here on right.
If you're going to fight, you got to do it now. You don't have a lot more to defend with. Benji goes in, finds Netroid, a great target. But Netroid will dash out, keeps his actives online. Benji strolls on away from the front line of this fight as well. And so actually a great engage there, Myth, where you're able to jump on Netroid, but look at the sustain on the speed buff. He's back to full HP.
He is, and that left side Phoenix is taking a good deal of damage, already dropped to about 50%. Wow. The Kings, knowing that, are trying to create some more threat on the right.
Layers is going to left. And the right side Phoenix is going to fall as well. No engage once Layers gets spotted. Layers has saved the life of the left side Phoenix, but how long will this last? With an Enhanced Fire Gianted out of their minds, Camelot Kings walking in towards your base. They made quick work of a full health Phoenix. You got to imagine this one, a couple auto attacks and it's gone.
Yeah, Netroid's able to get inside of that Phoenix range. He's going to remove it before the Tartarus Titans even realize it. So now, I think you got to take the fight outside your Phoenix if you want to maintain it, or you hedge your bets on your ability to win the team fight cleanly if you're the Tartarus Titans and try and attempt an end in response, but already playing with such a large deficit, not only gold, but the Enhanced Fire Giant on 5, right side Phoenix down, and now the left being pushed into.
I'm trying to watch for these skewers from Cyclone Spin, maybe the Dharmic Pillars from Aurora is the better target. We've seen this a couple times though. Aurora finds a big ult, and then nobody is in there from the Titans. Aurora pulled back in, and Big Man Tings sets him down gently back in the fountain. Benji has to rumble on away. Cyclone Spin's alone in the back line, and Cyclone Spin joins Aurora for some company on the grayscale screen. Camelot Kings have all 5. They've only got to push in against 3.
But they're going to make sure they take every precaution that they can. Mid-Phoenix might as well strip that one away. It was only 2 seconds of effort for the Camelot Kings, and now with 5, pushing into the throne room.
Big chunk from Paul. The Tartarus Titans need some of that good Paul magic right about now. And it needs to come now, because the Camelot Kings walk into the Titan room, and they'll take game number 1 over the Titans.
But Dave, it all ties back to that Pyromancer play where it was Layers and Aurora trying to 2-man it. You can't be doing that. Up until that point, it was 100% Tartarus Titans in control of the pace of that match. And afterward, it was the Camelot Kings. It was a distinct tonal shift off of 1 misplay.
Wild how that game turns around, because it's vintage Titans from what we've come to expect, at least in the first 15 minutes of that game, something like that, and you're wondering if the Kings are even going to show up in this one. I think Netroid has a really standout performance here as well. You know, plenty of conversation about how he looks great on the ROM. Where else is he going to go in the picks and bans? And the Izanami game, I think, did him some justice.
Yeah, he looks so strong on this one, but the landing phase was a little bit weak, but
it was tough.
Gotta give him a little bit of credence there. Playing into the set, it's not something you got a whole lot of experience doing, and we saw what that set was able to do insofar as damage output when allowed to take those fights. So Netroid, once he was able to get into these team fights, big diff.
Gotta feel good for variety too after the way that his blue buff was sat on, that you're able to get the win by the end of it. Big turnaround from the Camelot Kings in game 1. Will it be a 2-0 set? Find out after this.
Shop.Smite Pro League is the place to go if you want to pick up any of your SPL merch, including the newest line of items that we've added to the Inside Apparel store. Thanks to our sponsors at Inside, you can get yourself a pair of athletic joggers to represent any of the teams that you may want to. We got one for every single one of the SPL teams. We've also got mouse pads available with the team logos, all of them customized to represent your favorite team. And yeah, Gormizer, I went back and I looked, and they're $29.99. So it would be very irresponsible for you to buy all 8 of those. So unless you got a spare 240 sitting around to buy one for all the teams, probably not recommended. But you can at least pick up one of them to represent your favorite team.
But you know the good news?
What's that?
I don't need 8 mouse pads, as makes sense. But I could wear 8 pairs of joggers.
You could wear 8 pairs
That's
of joggers.
one for
though
every day of the week, and then extra.
Could have that. That way you can have a midday change if need
7
be.
days of the week.
There are 7.
Yeah.
So then the 8 is just maybe you just change one out each week. So you say I'm going to wear these 7, then next week we rotate one out and put a new one.
Hold on.
Well, okay.
7
7
and then laundry day, number 8. And then you
Oh,
wash
okay.
the other,
Oh, there you go.
and then
There
it's
you go.
just
So
a
while
cycle.
you're washing the other 7, you have the 8th one to wear. So
Yeah.
there you go. You can buy 8 pairs of joggers. Probably don't get 8 mouse pads because I don't think anybody has 8 computers that they need those mouse pads for. But either
Jimin's
one,
right.
if you want to, I know of at least 2 computers that he has, and one of them is the massive 5 monitor setup he has in his bedroom. Then we have the one out in the living room that has the VR setup. So
and that's how it starts.
that is how it starts. And
2
then I've
is
got
on the
one.
way to 8.
And then I've got 2 is a very steep climb to number 8 there, Cora. I think the math might need a little bit checked there.
But it is on the way.
You know what?
You know
You're
what?
not
you can't
wrong.
get to 8 without going past 2.
You're not wrong. It is 2 Shop.smartproleague.com if you want to buy joggers or mouse pads. Let's get right back into the game here. Camelot Kings struggling a little bit in the early game. Tartarus Titans making the early game look good, which is what we thought would come out of this. Is a strong laning phase, but when you get down to the end game, the Ganesh didn't quite step up for them. The set ADC, believe it or not, didn't really pan out for him too well.
Yeah, that's, I think, where a lot of the problems were. We were kind of talking about it. Like, Ganesh takes a little while to come online. Set, I think if Cyclone had gotten a absolutely bonkers start, probably would have been able to control a lot. And I think there was a play at a certain point. They dumped a lot to kill the set. There was a point where there was a Cataclysm into a Dark Portal just to kill Cyclone Spin. That was one. I think this is the other, where they just shut him down and locked it up. And so despite the fact that Layers had a really good early game, they had nothing to really pick that up towards the late game. Whereas on the other side, I think Mifflin had said it the best. They had a hunter. Netroid, I was talking about how great he is on ROM and how that has been like an easy win condition for them. But he can very plainly make that work on some of these other hunters. 6-1-3 for him. I think that Netroid got to have a very clean game, easy setup from the rest of his team as well. That really allowed it to transition. I mean, when it came down to objectives, neutral, or towers otherwise, it was so much easier for the Kings to really start making marks on the map than anything the Titans had.
And I think that's a big point to bring home from this game is the fact they had a hunter. If this was a set jungle, which we've seen set jungle work out in the past, it works really well. It can do some really good numbers. The problem is this is a set ADC. They don't have any real, let's be real, they don't have a whole lot of ranged damage for themselves. It's a hell for close-up damage. Sure, you can throw your projectile out and get a little bit. That's cool. But there was no range damage. So when it came to fighting structures, fighting objectives, everybody on the Tartarus Titans had to be up close to try and deal that damage, where the Camelot Kings, they get to sit back comfortably because they have some of that range damage, whether it be from the Tiamat throwing out some of those long-range shots, or whether it be from Netroid just sitting back and throwing basics.
Now I'm curious, though, because going into Game 2, I think we see a lot of changes from the Kings in the first few minutes, where their draft starts to pick up some of the slack and the Titans start to fall behind, and that's really what helps kind of dynamically shift that back in their favor. That feels to me like the Titans had an idea of, you know what, like, we need to try this. We need to try it against a team that's going to be good. Let's see how this works. Can these picks do well? And I am always for that, because if you're going to do it, you have to do it in game number 1. It is the one that, you're more than likely able to experiment. If it goes well for you, cool. You know something that you can have in your pocket. If it doesn't, oh well, you've still got games 2 and 3, right? So it opens the door. How the Titans change their draft and how the Kings change their draft is going to be very important to me. If we start to see, Tiamat, Geb, Cerberus was a very good, clean top 3 for the Kings. Same thing could be said. The Titans got a very clean top 3. But the Hoonbats ban, the Raven ban, things that kind of targeted specifically towards Twig. His Susano didn't have a great early game, I wonder if they'll pick something else up for him.
Maybe they do prioritize something for Twig a little bit earlier here and picks and bans for game number 2. Camelot Kings have a nice advantage going here, and the thing that also has to be said is the Tartarus Titans had a solid top 3. The fact that RDO even made it through the bans is something to be said, and the Tartarus Titans get to pick it up as a first pick. That's a great one. Then they get an Erlong Shen, who's probably, as Mifflin's kind of pointed out, really the only warrior who has survived this assassin incline out of the 8.9 patch. And then they get Hell, out of all things, who was also seen, as you can see right below, an 80% ban rate all the way through until this match in particular. So the fact that they got those 3 top picks was solid for the Titans. It was that back to that Ganesh set that kind of fell apart for them. We'll see if they change that up, if they get the ability to change that up, because when it came to the bans for part 2 for the Kings, they had 2 immediate target bans and 2 gods they focused out in particular, being that Sylvanas, and then they were also making sure to keep other gods out of the pool, like the Emoja, who somehow made it through and got banned at that tail end.
And so far, they've kept things the same overall. At least on the Titan side, that's easy to say. Might see a change up from the King still. And I don't mind it. Again, the top half of their draft, actually, literally everything except for Ganesh set, I really loved for the Titans. And I don't dislike the Ganesh set. I just think the Ganesh set need a different set of circumstances to get themselves a victory there. I think both of those picks, especially Ganesh, not necessarily really going to control the early game. You're up against an Izanami. That's going to struggle a little bit already. But then late game, you did not get to see Cyclone Spin have any of the flourishing opportunities that you want to see out of a set. He was controlled way too often. The Cataclysm, the Dark Portal, Izanami, and just any of the ganks realistically that the Kings had to shut that down made it easier. So it's not even a pick that I think they need to shy away from. I just think it's something they have to keep in mind with their gameplay strategy, is not just can layers get kills on Erlong, can we also funnel a lot of farm over there to Cyclone Spin. That is the way to really start paving forward for that assassin to make sure he could have a bigger impact. So if they go back to it, it's not the end of the world, but they do have to change it on the field.
It is the exact same 3 bans from the Kings as they take the Odin Uller in a final, the Morrigan, off the board. And it's a little curious. It's not like the Morrigan herself got any buffs with this patch. Maybe it's just the fact that assassins are back in, and now that you can have 2 of those assassins on your own team, maybe it's also just a good ban against Paul. I mean, he was in contention for a World's MVP and really looked strong on this god. It was one of the clinical gods that he was able to put performances on, able to really dominate games. So maybe it is just a respect ban at Paul more than anything. The Uller is just a safe ban probably, just because of how he's been performing with the changes to 8.9 with his buffs and all the items around him being buffed. But as our first picks come through, it leaves the RDO and the Erlong Shen open, so the Titans will grab those 2 right away. Geb Izanami on the other side, so the Kings are keeping their dual lane true. The Tartarus Titans, I'm not going to... Now, we saw him locked in earlier. I'm going to wait until it's actually locked in before I comment too much about the Thaw. Didn't work out super well for Zeros, and it's not going to be picked here, so it's the exact same top 3 from the Titans.
Yeah, and again, this much of their draft I was absolutely in love with. I liked their bans as well, and depending on how well they play in the game, I could love their bottom 2 picks. What I like the most is that they shifted the Izanami up, just because after that performance, you could feel, Netroid maybe getting scoped in a little bit more. A lot of people looking towards him easily and making sure that Izanami is there for him, knowing that he's got an easy fallback pick behind that ROM, makes it a lot easier. Yeah, you might end up losing the Cerberus. You do end up losing the Cerberus because of the ban, but I think this is a much more essential part of their team composition, and it helps control what the Titans are going to have. It's easy pressure in the duo lane, and it kind of makes up for the fact that Geb doesn't have bad clear, but Geb doesn't have good clear. Izanami really helps balance that out and gives the duo lane a little more punch to it.
But because the Cerberus wasn't the heavy priority, it doesn't even matter. They're going to go to Sobek. They required a Cerberus ban to make sure that there was a change in the solo lane, and then they only got 1 time to ban against Captain Twig. And after the performance he had against the Solar Scares with his Hoonbots, I'm absolutely not surprised by the fact this one was banned away. He went 8-0 in his debut back in the SPL here in Phase 3. So, yeah, no shock to see the Hoonbots is the one taken away. That does leave Robin, though with a strong Susano game that he had last time, would not be surprised if we saw Captain Twig go back to it. But the world is his oyster. There's so many assassins. There's still some of the other warriors if he decides that maybe he wants to dip his toes back in towards maybe where we saw an 8.8 bonus. But now the option is back over towards the Tartarus Titans. They still need to grab their duo lane out of everything. Last time was the Ganesh set. Don't think we'll see a repeat here, Gore?
Probably not. I mean, again, there's a world where they go back to it and a world where it's not unsuccessful, honestly. I think that a lot of it does have to change. That for that kind of style, it has to take place in the game. I think it is much more set Cyclone Spin up to be the carry, and like not just, oh hey, we'll get you to late game, which you can do with a lot of hunters, but much more heavy-handed. We are going to funnel you kills, we're going to funnel you gold, we're going to do whatever you need. We're going to roll out the red carpet and let you go on to it. But I don't think it's something that you can easily do, especially against a team like the Kings. They're going to control that duo lane a lot more, especially with Gabby Uzanami. So even if you went for that style of play, it would just be a struggle the entire time. You're fighting uphill for the entire market of it. And so I like the fact that they've changed it.
Yeah, they will change them. Instead of the Ganesh set we saw in Game 1, it'll be Kuzenbo Ho Yi to round out the draft for the Titans, and the Camelot Kings might just be looking to make a near repeat performance as far as their drafts go. The only thing that has changed so far was the Cerberus being banned, so they have a Sobek, so it's swap one Guardian for another Guardian. But Captain Twig is looking at the Susano. Had a bit of a struggle earlier on, but who cares about Susano? Let's talk about Loki, who really the only player in the league who is playing this god at the moment is Johnny. Now maybe that's just because the Warriors came through and they kind of dominated, so we didn't get to see any more Loki aside from him. But now we're seeing it here in Captain Twig's hands. How do you feel about this Loki?
It's intriguing to me. I think with Assassins, I'm curious what Mifflin would think about this as well. And Aggro's not here, but I want to have the conversation with him. Because we've seen a whole ton of different styles of play. When Assassins start coming back into the meta, my mindset for Twig drifts back to what he used to love playing, things like the Naja and gods like that. Loki is still kind of, I guess, maybe in a similar vein. It's definitely going to be a single target focus for him, but not, again, not in the list of like top 6 maybe junglers that I would have come up for Twig prior to this. And so a good change of pace for him, but it is something we've seen in the past. You had mentioned Johnny. We also saw Panatom playing a lot of this. He has made his rounds in the top level of play earlier this year, faded into obscurity as the Warriors kind of rose up, and I think it can have a lot of potential. If you're looking to keep up with the Erlang Shen, I think Loki's going to give you, again, a lot of pressure to help alleviate it. But I look at the 1-2 punch in mid. Erlang Hell, to me, hits way harder early on than Loki Tiamat. Loki, again, being the one who's going to have to shoulder a lot of that weight for the first few levels.
Man, now you brought it up, and I kind of want to see the Naja again, man. I just miss seeing it. Captain Twig was one of the only people who was playing this pick, and it's always just a fun one to watch. Usually you do couple it with a burst mage at the tail end, something like the Kukulkans that we've seen out of big man teams. Even the Raw is always an option, but instead we are going to be going to the Loki. So with this Loki rounding out the draft for the jungle, maybe a little bit more early pressure, or maybe you think this Loki kind of teeters a little bit more towards the mid or late game.
I think the way that, like, if Twig's going to play this to be effective, he's going to try to get involved early on, especially to help shut down the Hell. I think a lot of this matchup early is going to be, a little Erlang Hell heavy, but I do think that the Kings, especially with what they had last time, will have a good transition period. The problem is that now there's an actual carry, another Hunter on the other side, and that Hu Yi, especially with the Kuzenbo alongside it instead of a Ganesh, makes it a lot more interesting.
The Tartarus Titans are trying to keep their dreams alive of keeping that win streak up and taking the record. Can they do it, or will the Camelot Kings shut them down here? Let's take it right into game number 2 to find out.
Something about the Camelot Kings ending win streaks, huh? The Camelot Kings one game away of doing it again, this time to the Tartarus Titans. Still Dolson, Miff, and of course Doug, bringing you the views and the calls for game number 2 of the Kings versus the Titans. Should be some fun here, Miff. Captain Twig, pivots still in the Assassin tree, but a bit of a different look here with the Loki.
Yeah, it is a very good early game pick. We saw Johnny have a moderate amount of success through it in the early game during his set, and, well, I think Gore does a very good job highlighting that Tiamat really doesn't match up that early game pressure style. So if we are talking about the 2v2 potential of Loki and Tiamat versus Erlang Shen and Hell, you're probably favoring the Tartarus Titans throughout the phase of this one. But now, this would be potentially the 5th game in a row where Layers picks up Erlang Shen and could potentially get first blood on second wave in mid. But I just can't think the Camelot Kings fall for it that many times.
But I don't even know if they fell for it last time. I mean, Layers was just in lane.
Just don't fight him.
Right, just don't fight. Walk away. You don't want to fight against Layers when he's on early on Shen.
Early on Shen.
Yep, that's
and you let that sit. Well, was I? Okay, I just gotta. Did you want me to laugh?
Early on Shen. That is hilarious.
Ah!
Appreciate you, Miff. Look at this push from Aurora. Gets Genetics against the wall. That's level 1. Oh, no. I can't believe it. Oh, that sucks. Genetics body blocked against the wall with Aurora and the Nene. Unreal. And it's going to get worse.
God.
Netrioid jumped on. Double kill for Cyclone.
Yeah, I think Cyclone Spin looks much better on Hunters, right? This is a great start for
Yeah,
him. But
that was all
obviously,
Cyclone.
being a little bit glib, Aurora does a lot of that one with the Nene, and then an early rotation from Layers to make sure that both of the dual laners, the Camelot Kings, fall down. But that's tough. That's just tough stuff. Yeah, that's what happens.
Do you
in
think
Smite
that?
sometimes.
Do you think he plans that?
No, not even a little
Like
bit.
it just happened?
I think that Aurora knew that there was the potential for it to happen, but he's not saying, all right, bro, I got him here.
We'll get a look back at it. So he throws it out and then gets the push. And look at this little guy just
No, it's just perfect.
just follows him right on in.
Genetics just looks around. He doesn't even auto, poor guy.
Yeah, you know, at some point, you just throw your hands up. There's nothing you can really do in that moment, and Genetics learned that the hard way. So now this lane feels real bad. Aurora and Cyclone Spin have a 1-level lead, and there's 2 kills in the back pocket of this Hou Yi. Looks like Crusher first item, which is interesting, Miff. You know, I figured we'd see plenty of the Mace Tree out of the jungle, as we have seen. And then on the ability-based Hunters, of course, you're going to see the Mace Tree as well. But Crusher has been a pretty not ideal, a popular start for any Hunter, I guess, from what we've seen here this weekend.
Yeah, just good power, good attack speed,
Yeah,
a
the attack
passive that
speed's
generally will be able to be applied by the majority of the Hunter cast, so it makes sense to me that they're able to pick that one up.
Oh
and
my
slot
God!
it in. No, not twice.
I swear, I thought it was it was that slight moment of hesitation where I was for sure it was happening again. That we've left the Hunters alone. Netrioid is just low, and Aurora's been in the back line this whole time. And Netrioid will walk away. Can Cyclone Spin do the same? Yes, he can. And Genetics won't be able to get the kill.
Can he do it? Aurora, do it to him again. Use the dash.
Come on.
Go ahead.
Come on. Nope, not going to do it. All right. Aurora did it once, nearly did it twice, and the third time was a little bit further off. But how obnoxious has this Kuzumbo been in this lane? Genetics gets pushed right back in. Cyclone Spin is still here. What are you doing?
What?
Genetics just rolls forward, gets the kill. He's going to die for it. Layers is going to get the kill. But Cyclone Spin sticks around a bit too long.
Yeah, I guess Cyclone's like thinking, all right, no way this guy just rolls out at me. My support's right there. He'll block it. But Aurora was not in range to do so.
Oh, Captain Twig makes his way to the left side of the map. He's got a 1-level lead over Layers. And Netrioid now back in this lane with a kill of his own. Assassinate onto Aurora. And Captain Twig, the guy who apparently can't play Assassins, is making it look good here in game number 2. The last bit of damage is there, and now it's Netrioid who's got a double.
So now we got a little bit of equity, parity between the Hunters
Apparently
here.
was not the right word there. Supposedly is the word I was going for.
What was that? No, you said.
I said Twig, the guy who apparently can't play Assassins.
Well,
and
it
I
is.
want to
It's
make
apparent, clearly, right?
Right, that was very, I gotta cover my bases on this one.
Twig, if you're listening, and I know you're not because you're in the middle of this match, Dave doesn't think he can play Assassins.
Yeah, correct. I'm glad that's what we got out of that whole thing. No, but the turnaround here, Miff, is fantastic, and it's what you need out of Captain Twig. The level 5 tick over right on time, and what a life raft for Netrioid. I mean, this lane was just brutal through the onset, and now Netrioid's got a double right back in the lane.
Well, it's actually a Jotun's Wrath pickup for Cyclone Spin instead
I was
of
wrong.
the Crusher. I mean, that's a ton of power. It's a little bit cheaper. You got some CDR. That ultimate going to be available a little bit more often as well. And I guess Jotun's Wrath, just being as cheap as it is, despite legitimately not having a passive, it's one of the few items in the game of Smite that does not have a passive. Feels pretty good for Hunters right now.
That's right. We'll see how Cyclone Spin changes his playstyle, if at all. He's an actual hunter this game, so it's going to be difficult to not sit back and do huntery things. His arrow as well is going to deal some serious damage if that opportunity presents itself. Benji and Variety dueling it out over the Totem of Ku, and I hesitated because Captain Twig does have his ultimate. And if Benji overextends or gets low enough, or uses his escape, you might see Captain Twig get aggressive, not to be though. And so Benji will live on here in this lane. But I think great for Variety now, right? You think back to game 1, he lost like 6 blue buffs in a row or something like that. Feels like Captain Twig a bit more on even footing with Layers here this game, and it's going to be harder for the Titans to find that continued on cooldown blue buff pressure.
Yeah, Captain Twig actually benefiting from a slight lead inside of the jungle. 0-2 for the Loki as opposed to the 1s across the board for Layers. Nets him a level 7 to Layers is 6. And Cyclone Spin is playing the exact same way as he was in game 1. Just sitting on that tower line, throwing out damage whenever he's allowed to, and Netrioid is struggling up against it. Sustained advantage going to go the way of Cyclone Spin, lifesteal in the build already, and instead Netrioid going for that tainted steal means that really he's just working with the health that he has.
Purple buff looked at, and instead it's Netrioid that actually gets looked at. He will be able to dash out of this,
nice.
and he will. Nice dodge there. As the Suns come down from Cyclone Spin, roll forward, plus Cataclysm equals a locked down Layers. Aurora still chasing forward. Captain Twig doing so as well, has the damage, and Layers will end up falling. Cyclone Spin goes up and over with his last bit of mana. This is a big ultimate from Aurora, but not enough to completely disrupt the Camelot Kings, who get in, get out with one.
Paul steals away the small minions on the purple buff because
That's
he's
just
not
min-maxing.
able to rotate in. He's like, yeah, you know, I'm here already. I can't steal the purple proper, so at least a little bit of farm going to roll out
And he
his
gets his
way.
whole wave.
Yeah, dude. No, Paul's pretty good at Smite, but the Tartarus Titans do not come out ahead inside of that engagement. Layers losing out on his life. He has his lead lost even further. Now 2 levels for Captain Twig in the jungle.
Captain Twig off to a good start here on this Loki. I will admit, I wasn't, you know, there's the standard list of assassins we'd figured we'd start to see a little bit more. I did wonder, I'm not going to list them off, Myth. I don't know why you're counting, unless you want to.
What? No.
Who'd you figured we'd see with the big Mace Tree update?
Generally, every single one of the global Ultimate Hunters I thought would see a pretty nice resurgence. Hunbots is up there as well, and
Yeah.
just a tried and trues. Everything from Season 7, really.
Did you expect to see Loki?
Yeah, I think post-rework Loki is incredibly strong. I mean, his damage output inside of the team fight, his gap close, all very good. I'd say Loki only has like 1 bad ability, and it's not even necessarily bad. It's just that 2, inking somebody, it's not really a great form of CC. It's not a true blind, and the damage is just like not very high.
Yeah, probably why you're only putting 1 point in it and moving on.
And that's it.
I'm gonna level my 3 and my 1 a bit before that, says Captain Twig. He's at a big power point now here in this game. He's got Jotun's Wrath in to another Mace item here shortly. Late game, not to scoff at here for this Camelot Kings team. You've got Captain Twig, who has maybe an easier time of finding his way into the back line and deleting a target. Here in this one, Variety is going to scale pretty well here, Myth. A late game force, to be sure.
Yeah, Variety is just biding his time, really. Sobek in the Artio matchup has just got to be miserable, man. I mean, he's not able to find the 1v1. He's not allowed to pluck. Benji's just about ever. That cripple field is always going to be around him if he's worried about it. So instead, Variety's just here to keep waves outside of that tower and farm up until he's able to rejoin his team later on. The scaling that you alluded to. But that scaling, I think, is matched up pretty well by what Benji's able to do on this Artio. A god that has largely been first pick, first banned every single game.
And Benji's got Stone of Binding here. So if that CC connects, which it often does, if it's Benji playing the Artio, a little bit more damage for the rest of the squad. And so a good start for Benji and Variety both, who have maintained parity there in that lane. Gold Fury is up here, Myth, and that's kind of when we started to see things heat up a little bit. In Game 1, we've slowed down a bit on the individual picks. But there were a couple of times where the Camelot Kings shied away from those objectives. The Tartarus Titans did so as well. What is Layers going to get done here? Over on the right side of the map. Nothing, because Variety will dash away. Though I admire the effort from Layers to make his way to the right.
Yeah, the gumption. Had
gumption, the
Benji
gall.
been able to stun out that dash, maybe they force the Lurking in the Waters, but I don't think there's any situation where Variety dies here, unless he's defending his blue buff on his own.
Please kill Variety. It's right on the other end of that. You are going to kill Paul. It's going to take a little while, because the health sustain is enough. Captain Twig continues his onslaught here in Game 2. 2-0-2 on the Loki. And life does not appear like it's going to be getting any easier. Variety did nearly go down there, Myth. We didn't get to see the engagement. Did take a lot, still will take a lot. Layers might give it a lot. He has Blink, does not have Ultimate. I think maybe if Variety had pathed through the jungle, that's an opening for Layers, but he won't get the chance.
Instead, the Camelot Kings find their pick on the Paul, take out the Tier 1 mid tower, and walk away with 1,000 gold in the lead. And with the new true objectives spawning up just now means that, really, the Camelot Kings are in a position where they can start to look towards those very, very soon. Their burn potential is pretty decent between Netroid and Captain Twig, but the Secure a little bit weaker. Tiamat does not have that sole source of burst damage to just make sure those objectives lean your way in a coin toss situation. So expect the Camelot Kings to take a kind of even engagement, maybe likely keeping their eyes towards the fight first, but gold largely equalized at this point. Maybe neither team's feeling confident enough to look at these objectives.
Yeah, maybe not. Though the Camelot Kings have been playing with a little bit more pressure out of the jungle. I mean, what a difference it's made. From Game 1, you have Layers really running things on this Erlang Shen, making life all over the map just chaotic for the Camelot Kings. And now it's Captain Twig who's doing the same thing, but to the Titans this time. There's a Brawler's Beat Stick, one of them. Can't get two of them, Captain Twig. Picked up for a little anti-heal. The Pestilence is in there as well. I imagine it's a Divine Ruin for big man Tings. You're going to prioritize anti-heal, Myth, I imagine, about the same as you did in Game 1, because you got the same 3 healing characters over on the other side of the screen. There's a fight here on the Layers.
Yeesh.
Goodbye, Erlang Shen. Layers has not had a chance to play. A killing spree for Netrioid, and a couple of those kills have landed on the Erlang Shen.
Man, Layers just trying to get proactive on the map, and this time around the Camelot Kings privy to it say, look.
So long,
yeah,
Shen.
Well, yeah, so we don't win
I am
1v1s up against the
I am on
Erlang
it.
Shen, so instead they jump him in the jungle. Yeah, you're on it, bud. You're definitely on something. That's for sure.
I'm on it. That was a fantastic pun, and I won't hear anything other. Layers at 1 and 3, Myth, and truly it is a total difference from what we saw in Game 1. There's just been such good punishment. You're laughing. You're now laughing, and that's a win for me. Thank you. And that's a hearty laugh. I appreciate that there, Myth.
Yeah, good stuff, man. You broke
right,
me in the
so-
middle of this hype set.
I know it's totally my fault. I'll dial it back up here. Let's take a look back at exactly what happens to Erlang Shen here. And starting off with the Dark Portal here, great
He blinked
from
in.
Netri, or the Cataclysm rather, followed up by the Dark Portal. That is just a lot of burst damage that Layers wasn't prepared for.
Legitimately, I mean, had Layers waited like 0.5 seconds, Aurora was already watery graving. My man Beybladed his way around the corner. Had he had that assistance, Layers probably survives that engagement, but a couple microseconds difference is what spells a win and a loss in a team fight for the Tartarus. Titans and the Camelot Kings, given that opportunity, shut him down immediately. Layers loses out on the blink and his life in one fell swoop.
I can't imagine Erlang Shen feels great to play.
So long, Shen.
Thank you. I can't imagine Erlang. I mean, that was horrible, Myth. Unreal. I can't imagine that Erlang Shen is going to be feeling great for Layers right now, especially the way he wants to play on that pick. I mean, you're at 1 and 3. You still have this scale potential, but with all the counter engage the Kings have already shown us, Layers is going to have a tough time in a lot of these fights. Ward coverage is swift here and healthy for the Camelot Kings as the Gold Fury gets eyed. Captain Twig walks on forward, gets some damage onto Aurora, who reflects some of it back to Captain Twig, but Twig largely winning that engagement. The Tartarus Titans know that this is happening, but can they do anything about it? Going down quickly, but the Camelot Kings take down the Gold Fury. There's some damage on the backline as Cyclone Spin drops the Suns. Forward goes Benji. It's a double stun. The Stone of Binding doing some work here for the Tartarus Titans solo laner. Variety trying to walk away. Genetics will be able to do so. The Ricochet nearly there from Cyclone Spin, but now lurking in the waters is Variety. Is there a pluck on the other end of this fight? You might need one to save the life of Captain Twig, but look how low the rest of the Titans are.
Benji now left alone, has to use the cripple field just to make sure he isn't plucked out of position. Paul and Layers going to rejoin him towards the center of the map, and a phenomenal disengage from the Camelot Kings after taking the Gold Fury nets them a clean win. Variety in particular plays very well on that disengage. Plays the peel role for Genetics, uses the lurking in the waters not only for damage mitigation, but also to slow down the onslaught from the Tartarus Titans.
Pyromancer started up though, sensing that the Kings may have gone back to base. Genetics has not been able to reset, so he is still low in this fight. There's the push against the wall from Aurora. Is he gonna live? Again, Genetics trying to walk away. Genetics will, in fact, walk away. The Camelot Kings now collapse right on in. Benji plucked back. Variety finishes his own work, and the Kings get another while Genetics laughs from the sidelines.
Why is Genetics still here? Just go home, buddy. The boys don't need you. Variety and Captain Twig very healthy and able to fight this one out on their own. And watch Twig. He might want some more. Ultimate can be coming up very shortly here in Layers. Well, he's not very tanky at this point. That said, Twig, he's got his eyes on a blue buff instead.
He does, and he will get the blue buff as Variety will dash on away from that one. Aurora going to make sure nobody goes back to pick it up. But the Camelot Kings now, Myth, have gotten a couple of individual picks that have made a big difference. Around that Gold Fury, you're able to get away, and it's maybe the lack of picks that the Titans have got that make a big difference here, where it feels like you're about to get Genetics, you're about to get Variety, and the Kings have done so well disengaging, baiting you in if you're the Titans. That this game has started to get out of control. Pyromancer's going to help with that gold lead just a little bit. We were at 2K, getting close to 3 now, 15 minutes in.
Man, Genetics is just so annoying at this point, right? Geb already feeling very good. Thanks to some recent buffs, Cataclysm now has the ability to kill, as there is base damage associated with it, but it still is the Stone Shield show for Genetics right now. I mean, these shields have kept not only him alive, but it's allowed Captain Twig to play very aggressively inside of these team fights. Benji has not been quite able to find that CC lockdown that he's hoping for. Every time he walks in and stuns a priority target, immediately cleansed off thanks to the Stone Shield, and then the onslaught continues. But on the other end, Camelot Kings surging forward, and you'd expect with these fights going as long as they have, it would favor the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah,
They have so much healing. But instead, it just feels like the Camelot Kings say, all right, look, they use some abilities. Let's go in now. I don't care that we're all like 20% HP. We're going to win the fight anyway. And so far, that strategy, well, it's bulletproof.
Camelot Kings are having fun, to say the least, in game number 2. Though we saw a larger lead turned around by the Kings in game 1. But all that to say that the Titans not out of this game just yet. That said, if you're not able to finish off a lot of these kills or any of these kills, it's going to be a long, long road ahead, or it might be short if the Kings are able to take the game down shortly. So with no Pyromancer, no Fury for the next couple of minutes or so, you imagine the game starts to slow down just a little bit. And that's important. Look, Layers need some time to farm on up here, get some more items on this Erlang Shen, because you need to get to a point where you can output some similar pressure to what Captain Twig is doing.
Yeah, Layers has similar damage output as he did last time around,
no.
but Captain Twig finds him in the jungle.
There's the assassinate. My God, the damage is huge, but Captain Twig will get taken low in the back line. Benji chases him down and finishes off the kill. Layers is able to survive. And what has been happening to the Titans for so long now happens to the Kings. You're not able to finish off the kill, and you lose one in tow.
Yeah, Twig a little bit overconfident in his damage there, and beads from Layers keeps his life up and available to him. But as the point I was just making, Layers has very similar damage output as he did in the last game, still has phenomenal ability to shred HP bars, but playing from even is much harder than playing from ahead. That health shield from the turtle form is going to keep you alive for nearly as long inside of these fights, and so far the Camelot Kings have done a great job of making sure that Layers does not feel confident taking these fights. Kinsize, though, is a massive power spike for him, and now Genetics is going to be at a little bit higher risk of losing his life. Variety as well could be a little bit easier for Layers to look at, but as far as getting into the back line and taking out priority targets, it's going to be a good while until Layers is confident enough to do so.
Yeah, Layers towards the bottom of the damage charts. As you'd expect, he's been jumped on a lot this game. And hasn't had that freedom to melt the health bars as we saw in game number 1. So 3,200 damage for Layers. You expect that number to grow. You need that number to grow. If you're the Tartarus Titans and you want to have a chance here in this game. Oni Fury is about to spawn up here. The Camelot Kings are going to start sending Variety back towards mid. Benji trying his best to mirror the enemy solo laner. Will back off farm just a little bit in his side of the jungle. But that's kind of the telltale sign, Miff, that we're about to have a scrap. We're about to have a fight. Or an attempt over this Oni Fury. It's that Variety starts to make his way over. Benji might start lurking on this side of the map as well. Could be a good look at a 5v5 for the Camelot Kings.
The fight may start at the Oni Fury, but this late in the game, every singular fight that you take has got only one goal on your mind, and that's the Fire Giant. 19 minutes in, whoever takes this engagement cleanly likely walks away with the largest neutral objective on the map. That said, if the Tartarus Titans elect to, they can try and sneak away the Oni Fury. The same can be said to the Kings, and that would leave you in a position where you could try and put up a defense yet again. But it's such a valuable tool, the Oni Fury, to just split up the map, utilize a little bit of lane pressure to take out very weak towers, or maybe you don't even need the Oni Fury to do so, as Camelot Kings strip away the Tartarus Titans Tier 1 inside of the soul lane, just thanks to a little bit of lane pressure there. Keep your eyes on Netruid. Let's see which way he decides to rotate, and it will be towards the Fury and the rest of his team. The Camelot Kings feels like they're just playing a little bit more confident right now.
It is the start to what should be and could be another good game for Netruid on the Izanami. Looked great. Turned around game number 1. The big double kill and almost a triple around the Fire Giant, and off to a 3-1-2 start after what was a nightmarish start where the Tartarus Titans and Cyclone Spin got a double kill early in this duo lane. And so the turnaround from Netruid has been important. We'll see some of that strength here in this fight. Same from Cyclone Spin, though, as gone Jotun's first, as we pointed out. A bit more into standard Hunter items later on in the build. Odibo, Kinsize, and the Dominance down the stretch here for Cyclone Spin. So that ultimate for Cyclone is really going to be important. The Ricochet as well, hitting with those abilities. Thanks to that Jotun's Wrath, it's going to feel better. As the Oni Fury gets started up here. Camelot Kings are on it. Aurora is close by. Aurora blinks in. Sun's down. Titans take the Oni Fury. A lot of it by Cyclone Spin. Genetics pushed into the back line. Does not have his ultimate. Does not have a chance. Variety is low here as well. Cyclone Spin finds the first. Benji considering closing the gap here, but a couple blinks on out, and the Camelot Kings will escape.
Aurora seems like he wants to keep up that chase, but the Kings inside the Tier 2 tower should be able to maintain their lives. Having only taken out Genetics as of now, the Tartarus Titans likely cannot approach the Fire Giant proper, but still got relatively healthy HP bars here. Maybe the Pyromancer could be an option available to them, and it seems like the Tartarus Titans are willing to step up to that. And the Camelot Kings, having just now left their base, are moving forward, but they have no vision here. Maybe they're concerned. The Titans going for the more important of the two objectives, but Fire Giant remains safe. And that's just the Camelot Kings leaving up to a coin toss on the Gold Fury. The Tartarus Titans walk in. I believe it was the Reigning Suns from Cyclone Spin that were able to strip that one away, and the team fight afterward.
Odds is that it was that. Most likely that it was that. It was perfectly timed from Cyclone Spin. Gave his team a chance. Variety dashes in. Will not get the pluck.
Yikes.
And the damage from Cyclone Spin is hefty, but Captain Twig assassinates into the back line. Cyclone Spin still pretty healthy, though. Twig not hitting the value that maybe he had hoped for. Cataclysm through from Genetics. Benji tossed into the back line like a bag through the wind, but will he be able to run away? No, he won't. Big Man Tings grabs it, and the Camelot Kings already grouped up around the FG. Will they go for it? Not just yet.
Keep your eyes on Captain Twig's ultimate timer. He knows that Cyclone Spin does not have beads, and he knows that is a priority target for him. But as of right now, 40 seconds to play with. While Benji is in the grayscale screen, Variety going to be acting as goaltender, while the rest of his team, they've got their eyes on the prize. Fire Giant burning down.
Wow, and just in a moment where you feel like the Titans have some life in this game, the Camelot Kings find a pick and could rip away the Titans' chances, especially if this fight goes well. Netrioid engages on a Cyclone Spin, but Layers is chasing down the Izanami, and Layers will do one better. He'll get it. Captain Twig, though, stays alive on the other side of the fight and snags one onto Aurora. So an important trade back there, but very important that Layers gets Netrioid. Now you don't have a Hunter to help out with this FG, and the Camelot Kings will have to wait.
Yeah, that's essentially all your Fire Giant potential lost out in a flash. Tartarus Titans Layers in particular, credit for this one on phenomenal target selection, just isolating Netrioid once the rest of the Kings were engaging themselves onto Aurora, and Aurora being the support and a much lower level than Netrioid at this point is going to respawn first. So Netrioid going to be dead for about 10 seconds after Aurora respawns. Means that the Tartarus Titans are going to be playing with a little bit of an advantage here, able to establish the defensive positioning yet again on the Fire Giant. But make no qualms, this fight, the Fire Giant, that's where it's going to all be for the near future.
We're about as even gets. 500 gold in the leader, the Camelot Kings. Dead even as far as levels go for the supports. 1 level difference in the jungle. 1 level difference in Hunter as well. Tartarus Titans have the advantage of the ladder. Titans start up the FG. There will be a rotation in from the Kings. This is not shrouded in darkness. This is known that the Titans are on the Fire Giant. And the response, I don't even know if you call it swift. It was just showing up by the Camelot Kings. That's enough to make the Titans think twice.
Yeah, Genetics peeks his head around the corner and says, "Oh, word?" And the Tartarus Titans say, "Yeah, no, we're just kidding, man. It was just a prank. It's not going to happen right now." Both of these teams are going to be very reliant on finding a pick inside of these fights. We were talking about earlier, Captain Twig does know that Cyclone Spin speeds are down, but that window is dwindling. Only 15 seconds left until the Hunter of the Tartarus Titans get that defensive relic back, and then Twig gonna have to work very hard to find some value from this assassinate. Look, man, it just seems like the Camelot Kings, their best fights are off the back of Variety. It's these plucks on these frontliners immediately into Netrioid or even Genetics, stripping away percentage HP, and all this penetration from Netrioid's build should help out a fair bit. So I like what Twig's actually doing on the map right now. Could go for a split push situation. He likes his odds in the majority of 1v1s on the map, but showing himself here could let the Tartarus Titans know that there's an advantage on the Fire Giant side. So instead plays inside the jungle, drops the decoy on the wave, and none the wiser are the Tartarus Titans. The Captain Twig is getting himself a little bit of pressure on the left-hand side.
Yeah, helps out, softens up the wave a little bit. And so the Tier 1 tower will take some damage. Likely won't go down here, but still gets pressure rolling in favor of the Camelot Kings. We have slowed down from a lot of the early fighting that we've had here. In 25 minutes in, this next big team fight is going to be the most impactful by far that we've had this game. Netroid's hit some important power spikes here, Miff. You've mentioned some of his builds so far. You're able to upgrade that Tainted Steel, and you get a Toxic Blade. The more involved, I mean, it's a bit of a non-statement, but the more involved Netrioid is as far as hitting those priority targets with those auto attacks is easily going to be better for the Camelot Kings. All about positioning, though. That's kind of where it felt awkward for Netrioid in that last fight. You kind of get jumped on by Cyclone Spin. Layers is right there. You can't afford to get that health bar too chunked at the start of the fight.
Now Genetics trying his best to just defend his own wards, maybe takes a little bit more damage than he was willing to. Drop down about 60% HP. The Tartarus Titans are going to be able to establish yet again defensive positioning, and Genetics might just be forced to head back to base here. I mean, there's no healing on the side
Fire
of the
Giant
Kings.
started up by the Titans. Camelot Kings close by. A lot of damage pouring into it. The Fire Giant has gone low. Variety lurking in the waters underneath Benji. Could be a pluck on the other side. And in fact,
pluck.
There is. But Benji tanky enough to walk away. Layers finds his way into the back. Finds a knockup, but it gets his health bar dwindled away in return. A roar is spinning on around in front of the Camelot Kings here. And all these units of engagement have gotten the health bars low. But only one team has got to stay in mid, and it's the Titans.
Layers still maintains his ultimate, so that is at least one way for the Tartarus Titans to initiate a fight here if they so choose. But again, the longer the fight goes, the team with the healing is going to feel better for it. And Paul, he's making sure everybody on the Titans is feeling very healthy to take this next engagement.
So it is a slow play for the Titans as you wait for those ultimates to come back online. Important actives are still up for the Titans. You still got Aegis and Beads for Paul. You still got Aegis and Beads for Cyclone Spin. Can say the same about the Relic situation, though, for the Camelot Kings here. It is looking good after that small scrap, where only Beads for Netrioid are down. Ankh, important to have up for a big Fire Giant fight. And so the patience on using a lot of those relics, strong here for the Camelot Kings, and they'll be feeling better going into the next fight knowing that.
Bro, Twig does so much damage to these structures. I mean, if the Camelot Kings are concerned with their ability to take a team fight, just have Twig do exactly that. Generates so much pressure on the map, takes out the tier 2 tower in mid, and exposes one of the Tartarus Titans. Phoenix is here, so it's a win condition exposed for the Camelot Kings. But as far as gold and XP are concerned, we are dead even in this one, Dave. It's all about map state, map pressure, positioning, who's got more wards down, everything along those lines. It's all the intangibles, the things you can't stat track. And now the Camelot Kings, well, it's a bit of a smorgasbord of wards from the Fire Giant itself. Primal Fury, though, yeah, I think the Titans got this one.
Wow. The Camelot Kings don't care enough to step forward and try to steal it away. In a bit of a coin flippy fight, you're probably not rolling the dice of the game on a Primal Fury. Camelot Kings say, okay, we'll let that one go down. But now you do have to, I mean, that helps the Titans around this Fire Giant. It's something that the Titans were able to get very low just a moment ago without finishing it off, instead opted for the team fight. But even just a few seconds left unchecked between the entire roster here for the Tartarus Titans. Now you get a Primal Fury as well. I mean, this Fire Giant is going to go quickly, and the Kings, they got to be on it. They got to be right here, or else the Titans could sneak one away.
They could, but the Kings have been doing a great job of just maintaining at least a little bit of face around the Fire Giant, be it Genetics or be it Variety, just peeking their head around the corner and letting the Tartarus Titans know, hey, you can have the defensive positioning, but we're right here, and neither one of these teams has great confirmation on the objective, so it is going to be a coin toss if you want to leave it up to that. So instead, I like what the Tartarus Titans have been doing. It's just been a lot of poke and utilizing heals to try and find the pressure in the lane.
Variety plucks a Nene. No surprise there. Nenes are annoying. Captain Twig is going to be around the back here. Are you able to find Paul? Are you able to find Cyclone Spin? Are you just going to split push down the mid lane? This is all about the Kings just delaying a fight now. He has the damage to do it. He'll drop the decoy, and look at the damage he's doing to the Phoenix.
So fast!
He doesn't have the minion wave, though, so he's going to have to back off until the next wave comes in. The Tiamat minion was there, but I don't think it bought him enough time. Left side Phoenix is now going to be opened up. And the rest of the Kingsmith did such a good job of delaying. They backed off, despite the Titans kind of walking forward. You know Twig is here somewhere, and Layers knows exactly where he is. This is a blink forward. Massive jungle 1v1 now, one that Layers is looking better at here in the mid lane. Taunts through. Paul gets the kill, 2v1. And the Camelot Kings now down a jungler.
I think that was Crusher yellow numbers that lets Layers know exactly where Twig is looking for those jukes, man. Twig, you gotta know you don't win that 1v1. That's the third time this game you've used Assassinate on Layers when he has bees, and that's not a 1v1 you take.
It's big from Aurora. Watch out, back line of the Kings. The Cataclysm is there to peel out for the rest of the Camelot Kings. Genetics will trade out his life, but does he even save his own team? For the time being, yes. There's a lot of damage rolling back in here as well. Big Man Tings walks forward. The Tartarus Titans dispelled back out of the front line of this fight. This is massive. Big Man Tings from downtown gets the kill on a Cyclone.
And the rest of the Tartarus Titans are incredibly low HP.
Oh
Nice
my
block!
God! Variety plucks a roll right back through. Big Man Tings full
Vegas.
health on the back line. Layers has found the mid laner, but Big Man Tings grabs a double, a triple around the corner. Benji walks on through. Aegis will keep BMT alive for the time being. BMT make a BM3 on the other side. Triple kill for Big Man Tings. Variety doing his best, but the best is not enough. Corner kill for BMT. My man goes huge out of the mid lane.
Paul, now just trying to maintain his dignity for the rest of his team, is able to walk away from this one. Usually massive plays out of the mid lane would come from the Tartarus Titans, but the Camelot Kings will not make it easy. Win streak on the line, and Big Man Tings comes up in a big way for his squad.
My God, Big Man Tings, you had to do it to him like that, huh? Captain Twig dies early in the fight. It's a 4v5 for the Camelot Kings. They lose another. They lose Netrioid at the beginning, and that is absurd damage from Camelot Kings and Big Man Tings down the stretch there. Skyrockets up those damage charts. And now the Fire Giant has become enhanced, Smith. We spent enough time dancing around it that the Fire Giant is going to get started and finished by the Camelot Kings here, and everyone on the team will get it.
Man, we got to take a look back. It's
My
so
God.
well deserved. Big Man Tings put out a lot of damage, but you cannot sleep on Netroid. A lot of this comes from him as well. The Tartarus Titans emphasize Izanami inside of the fight, and well, that leaves Tings open to do whatever he wants.
That's right. Netrioid does well here. And actually helps out, you know, almost as a distraction. You don't want to relegate Netrioid to being a distraction, but turning the eyes and burning some of the cooldowns of the rest of the Titans gave Big Man Tings enough uptime. And that Aegis was well-timed as well. He needed every bit of health that he had here in this fight. Can you imagine if Paul was a little bit closer? Maybe you're going in for that pentakill. BMT goes huge, and the Camelot Kings now wrestle back control. This game was real close. And that's about a 5,000 gold lead, plus enhanced Fire Giant and exposed Phoenix in mid. And a great chance for the Camelot Kings to end a win streak.
So we've seen Twig a couple of times now attempt a split push, and I think that should be his role here yet again. Conflict Adverse should be the name of the game for this Loki going forward. I mean, if the Tartarus Titans are going to send Layers every single time to stop Twig from looking for this push, I think Layers wins that fight every single time. So instead, Twig should just be playing an annoying role, just trying to keep Paul or Layers outside of these engagements and allow the rest of the Kings to take this fight, because they're engage incredibly strong.
Yep.
If it's a variety pluck or genetics looking for a cataclysm, that's all going to set up for the massive damage that we know can come from Netrioid or Big Man Tings. So it's all on Captain Twig just to create these situations where the rest of his squad can thrive.
Maybe he'll just die early on in the fight again.
Yeah,
and
just get out of their way. Twig.
Right, just leave. Let Big Man Tings do his thing. No, you prefer this Loki to be a little bit more active in the team fights, but worked out for Twig last time. Will work out for Benji. Some ultimates spent. Genetics and Netrioid both on trying to kill Benji. Into the back line goes Variety. Cyclone Spin has taken a lot of damage from the Sobek here. He's working in the waters. There a pluck on the backside. Don't love throwing a roar into the back of your team. It looks like Tier 2 Tower will be under the eyes of the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, not for long though. Maybe they blink once and it's already gone.
I sure did. I missed it.
Tier 2 Tower removed from the map, and that's the right verbiage for it. Now, just about 8,000 gold in the lead and approaching the Phoenix.
You're still down a couple important ultimates here, though, if you're the Camelot Kings,
Netrioid.
and now you're down an important health bar. Netrioid half HP. Once that health shield wears off, it's going to look a lot more dire for the Izanami. What happened to Cyclone Spin?
Where'd he go?
My God, he's out of this fight. He's got to go back to Fountain. The Camelot Kings walk on in. They'll take the left Phoenix.
And now walk away with all their HP available to them. Can just go ahead and use that Fire Giant to resustain and head back in towards mid. Take your minion wave with you to make it a little bit easier, but maybe not necessary, as the enhanced Fire Giant will be stripping the defense. Or set up an ambush.
It's a bait. Variety dashes in, does not get the pluck, but Benji under a bit of pressure here, who will walk back forward. Layers solos out Twig, but Twig returns the favor. Big Man Tings is still alive, and Big Man Tings does it again. It's a double stun on the back line of the Tartarus Titans. Not able to finish off those couple of kills, but it's a big turnaround in the fight.
Man, get out of Tings' way. This guy is on a tear inside of these engagements, but now it is a 3 versus 3 coming into the mid Phoenix. But Netrioid healthy, Big Man Tings healthy. I love the odds.
Cyclone Spin took another chunk of damage here. Variety will tank up the mid lane Phoenix, and he will do it well. Paul walks a bit forward here. Will Big Man Tings
going in.
call him on it? He wants to. Variety's the one who picks up the phone zone. Paul down for a minute. Aurora dashing off to the side of the base here. Knock up for
Rip.
big man Tings, puts Aurora in the grave. And now it's all down to Cyclone Spin. He's on his own for 15 seconds.
Can he do it? Cyclone Spin's been in this
That's
position before.
here. Cyclone Spin goes up and over. Cyclone Spin drops down his ultimate. Big man Tings with the big man plays. Double kill, unstoppable. Ends the game, ends the set. The Kings on top.
Ends the game, ends the set, and ends the win streak, Dave. Camelot Kings looking so dominant. But you know what? I'm not going to credit it to the entire team. One guy stands out in this
Everyone
run.
else sucked.
Big man Tings. You got to cut him a bigger check. You're gonna be preparing his food for him. You make it easy for Tings for the rest of the day. He did a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, this was a uncharacteristically quiet second game from the Tartarus Titans. They got off to a great start. There were some fights there that they probably felt comfortable in. I think I voted for the Titans in this one just based off recency. The Titans looked unbeatable. There's always that threat when you're playing up against the Camelot Kings. Big man Tings has himself a day, and the Camelot Kings end the win streak of the Tartarus Titans 2-0. And that'll also end the week of the SPL. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, the desk will round us out.
I'm gonna take off my jacket for this one. Dude, this. No, I know he was supposed to take you out last weekend, but he got busy.
Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the Smite Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible Smite experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com. I know Mike didn't say the thing. Mike, can you say the thing for him?
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Hello and welcome back to the desk. One final time for the Smite Pro League here on day 3. The Kings come out with a big win, and all of that thanks to our title sponsor, Alienware, for being able to provide the gear for our players and here in the studio. If you want a chance to get some of your own gear, or maybe even just take a look at what's all back there, if you missed the video, you can always go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get all the details and all the information on that desktop or the monitor, whether you want to take a look at those or see anything else that Alienware has to offer. You can go to alienwarearena.com to join their global community or follow them on their social media at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure to go and give them a look. And one more shout out. Thank you so much for Alienware to sponsoring the Smite Pro League. But here, Camelot Kings able to topple the Tartarus Titans. They did it again. They did it again. The Camelot Kings stop another winning streak right at the tail end of when it was going to be big. And coming out here over the Tartarus Titans, didn't look like it was going to be that way until one bad fight.
This was the most ridiculously back and forth game. I mean, you get a lot of really good fights early on from the Titans into a lot of really good fights early on from the Kings. And again, going back and forth between the two of them to the point where, like you said, it looked like the Titans had finally cinched their grip around this game. And then Kings had some other things to say about it. The Tiamat looked incredible, and it wasn't just these little moments. It turns into this massive quadra kill, actually right here, where all of a sudden you're able to find a big kill on Cyclone. It's like, oh, well, that in and of itself, that's a huge win. But the fact that, despite the fact that your team suffers some unfortunate losses, you continue picking up kills, you get great knockups. You really showcase, I think, the full kit of Tiamat. Like, if you're wondering why this was a top pick god, that was the kind of play that makes Tiamat a top pick god. And it's just such a big turnaround for them. Not only does he end up getting a quadra kill, almost could have gotten a penta. If there was a pluck, I think it was just slightly afterward on Nepal. If that connects, he goes for the penta. The fact that it is slightly off right there is the thing that slows that one down and puts a stop to it. But the good news was enough people from the Kings still lived after that you were able to get a fire giant. Like, that play in and of itself wins the game. Everything after that was the Titans just trying to fight back, trying to figure out another way into this. If they make a sick play like that, then they're probably still in it. But Kings just is nuts.
Yeah, he just popped off this game. A quadra kill, and then I think 2 or 3 more kills to tail end. I know he got a double kill right at the start of that last little skirmish at the Phoenix to kind of close out the game, and he got another kill during the picks for all of that. So Big Man Ting's really coming up big at the very end of the game. A little bit of help from Netroid there as well. Kind of that last little corridor fight where that quadra kill goes through. Mifflin pointed out very well, it wasn't just Big Man Ting's. There's a good dark portal from Netroid and some damage to follow up. But yeah, I think if Variety hits that plug, that is 100%. It's one of those, like, I don't want to commit to going for the pentakill. He's kind of far, but if Variety hits that one, 100% he tries to go for that penta live or die.
I honestly, most people probably run for it anyway. I mean, he's so
That's
low.
fair.
It's that really weird part where, admittedly, they make the smart play. They play it safe. I also had to give, like you had said, a lot of props over to Netroid. It's easy to hype up Tings because he made the play, but of course a lot of it around him, the front line around him that helps set that up. I think the beginning of that fight starts with some really insane peel from a Cataclysm that was a really good engage from the Titans that gets thwarted thanks to genetics, but then you also get to see the Izanami throughout a lot of these little skirmishes, kind of showcasing a lot of prowess. Netroid, we had talked about it throughout this year, has fit into this team very, very well, but not only have they slotted in as a player to this team really well, but their picks have been single-handedly turning around a lot of these games. This time it was Tings, but prior to that, I mean, we've seen a lot of Netroid lately.
I mean, one of the things that teams have really been prioritizing against this player in particular is they've been banning Netroid's ROM. Make sure ROM is taken off the table. But he's always been going back towards this Izanami. When the ROM is gone, he says, okay, Iza's just fine. I mean, there was a point where you looked down his player profile on the website, and it was one of those two gods. Similar to how Paul is either Tiamat or Raijin until this set now where we see Hell thrown into the mix of it. It's been the same. ROM, Izanami. If one is up, the other is banned away. I'm going to make sure to take that one, get something comfortable. And I think the adjustment they made in game number 2 here by second picking it for him is probably the big turnaround, because you know that the Titans probably were looking at that god when the next round of bans were coming around.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to watch the Kings. They had a really good tear there throughout Phase 2, I should say, and even though it kind of fell flat towards the end, they ended up, solidifying themselves the first seed, but then weren't able to topple the Titans during the Phase 2 playoffs. Now they've found themselves in a much more favorable position, and again, these are the wins that matter for them. I think, if I remember correctly, this is that swap-up. The Kings getting a win here brings the Titans down in the standings, and of course brings them back up in the standings, tying a lot of teams in the middle, and we have to talk about it again, but these head-to-heads, all of these individual matchups, matter a ton when you are going into the group stage, not just because the top 2 seeds are the ones that are choosing who plays in the others, but because you are going to get thrown into something that is going to be hell. If the Leviathans get to say, we don't want to deal with the Kings, and throw you into a different group, and that group is full of only teams that have beat you, all of a sudden you are the ones that are, struggling, and you have to figure it out. And so that's kind of that's what they're playing with right now. That's what they have to deal with.
And it's going to be such a heavily contested group stage. I'm really excited for when these group stages fall through, because there's hardly any team out here that you just go, okay, this is your group. Have fun over there. Every single team is going to be looking, going, what do I really just not want to play against? And I think some players might be looking at the Kings after this set and going, maybe we don't want to play against the Kings. Maybe I put them in the other team's bracket. Maybe we let them deal with them. But because of this win, they're able to make a bunch of a shakeup in the standings. We'll get a look at the standings a little bit later to see how it all shakes up. But let's take another look at those post-game stats now that we have them available. 7-0-6 from Big Man Tings. Now, again, he got a quadra kill in that fight, so that 7 is kind of exaggerated a little bit, but still, 7-0 is the big number I'm trying to highlight with it. The fact that this mid laner went undying, coupling that with Variety going undying, and still dealing 32,000 player damage. Tiamat, yeah, we've been joking a little bit about how maybe Tiamat's no longer the top mage. Maybe she's not as good as she once was. I think this is a perfect highlight to show that this god is still that good, and maybe you probably should still be banning that god.
Yeah, she has a 100% win rate today. I mean, she was played in every single game today. She won every single game today. And so I'm starting to think that, I mean, admittedly, it's just so difficult. What are you going to ban and let through that Tiamat isn't going to make it through? There were so many really powerful picks. I mean, we even saw Ardeo for the first time this set, although maybe not having the showcase she would have liked after someone who's had a 100% ban this time.
100% ban?
Up, getting losed, 100% loss rate now. There we go. As things, shift, I think, more dramatically away from her.
It's an interesting stat to have, 100% pick ban rate / 100% pick ban rate, but 100% loss rate. Though it's only 2 games. We got Captain Twig standing by for our post-game interview to get a little bit of the thoughts of the Camelot Kings after your big win. First off, Twig, congratulations on your 2-0 over the Titans. How does it feel getting a win over the Titans after the loss against them in those Phase 2 playoffs?
Feels great, honestly. If I had to say the mental of our team before the set, I wouldn't have said it was looking good. So pretty amazing that the Titans managed to lose, I would say.
And we got to see a nice little pop-off from you there at the end of game number 1. It looks like you and the boys were all excited on getting that win. With 8.9, we talked to a lot of the players, a lot of the different roles, but let's talk to you a little bit about here. Tink's kind of alluded to, maybe you're not too much of a fan of going towards these assassins, but you pick up the Loki, you pick up the Susano. How'd it kind of feel having the more traditional assassins back in jungle?
Well, I figured I'd just play Susano and Loki, and if I lose, losing is learning, But I managed to do both, which is learn a lot because I didn't play very well, and win because Big Man and Netroid just turned up to play today. I think they carried the hell out of us today, and props to them.
Yeah, big props. How down was Big Man that he didn't get a go for the pentakill? Was Variety mad that he missed that pluck?
I don't think it was mentioned in the game, actually. That is a normal thing for Big Man to be mad about not getting more kills and more farm, but not today. Well, game day today, serious.
Yeah, all serious, all on the battleground. Congratulations on your win, and congrats on shutting down the Titans' win streak. Good luck in your next matchups.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to be expected out of any player. You miss out on a kill streak, you get a little upset, but I think it's interesting you noted that nobody even made a note of it when it came to the actual games, but yeah, he was probably a little upset. But the Camelot Kings, they do it twice. Once against the Bolts and now against the Tartarus Titans. They shut down the winning streak that could have been potentially taking out the record, or could have been shooting for the record against NRG. If you missed any of the action this week, well, here's what you missed. And you don't want to miss any of this. Go back and watch all of these when they get uploaded to SMITE VOD, and most importantly, the ones today. The Olympus Bolts get a 2 over the Valhalla Valkyries, and the Camelot Kings do it a second time, stopping the winning streak of the Tartarus Titans and defeating them 2-0. And let's see how that all affects the standings. We talked a little bit about it before the set even started on our first segment, how cool it would be to have a couple of teams still sitting at the top, but instead we have 4 teams sitting at 2 and 1.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. Look, and the fact that the Warriors, it kind of is unfortunate to see the separation, like the Scarabs, the Valkyries being at 0-3. Things are really starting to feel rough maybe for them down towards the bottom, but the Warriors are at 1-2, and that's not a far throw from being able to join a lot of these teams and still climb in the rankings. I think it's really interesting that these next few weeks have a lot more weight on them just because of this one win. Changing things up like that makes it a lot more interesting. A lot of teams at this point should start gunning for the Leviathans. I'm not going to be surprised if they have a big old target painted on their back. And of course, trying to make it into that top 2 is just the coveted spot for the next few games.
And at the moment, it is the Leviathans sitting at the top of it. 3-0, the only team still undefeated here in phase number 3, but it's only week number 2. We've only done 2 weeks of play. We still have more to come. Still plenty of SPL action, and that's just for the round-robin phase, and there's a whole group stage immediately afterward. Gormizer, it's an exciting week that we have coming up ahead of us as well. Let's take a look at that schedule to kind of see what all we get to see. Tartarus Titans start the week off against the Valhalla Valkyries. Another big one immediately after that one. I should say 2, 3, 4. We got four really big matchups here. Olympus Bolts, Camelot Kings, Olympus Bolts, and Atlantis Leviathans. That's going to be in studio. Jade Dragons and Solar Scarabs. That's going to be in studio. We get a double header in the studio on Saturday, and then we close the weekend with the Solar Scarabs and the Valkyries, and the Camelot Kings versus the Yoni Warriors. Sure to be some good action this week.
Yeah, that's going to make a lot of fun things. Again, a lot of these teams now are 2-1, so every single one of those wins has a lot of weight to it. And of course, I think it's really important to note that even the fact that they're 0-3, maybe not the best place to be in the standings overall when you're looking forward towards the group stage, but the Scarabs have still been giving a lot of these teams trouble in the process of getting to that 0-3. So despite not being able to find the wins, they are still keeping things close. And so even those matchups are something that you have to keep your eyes on because they could play make or break for a lot of these top teams.
It's going to be a big week of action ahead of us. 2 in-studio games on the exact same day, so make sure you're for sure tuning in Saturday. But always tune in to the SPL. No matter what day of the week it is, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, be there. We'll see you on the SPL once again on Friday. We got the Dragons in studio tomorrow for some media day, kicking it with the pros. Be sure to be there. Until then, make sure to stay hydrated, respect women, support your homies, and we'll see you next time.